live.
Hey guys, welcome to Nine Gates Podcast. I am the demon folklorist, Victoria Jaye.
Hello, I'm demonologist James Annitto.
And yeah, we're finally here. Exciting. So, we thought we would do a little bit of an intro so that we can introduce ourselves to you guys. I guess I'll start. I was 19 and I had a possession experience. And that set me along a path to when I got my master's in folklore from Utah State. And now I'm the demon folklorist because I was like, hey, maybe there's something I can classify here using sight, sound, smell, and feeling. And I turned that into a book. My first one, The Black Hours. And yeah, I have my second book coming out. It's called Hell, Horror, and Despair, Demonic Fantasy and Film, and that will be out fairly soon. And it is about the way that there are a lot of weird ideas from media that have trickled down into demonology. And I'm also a speaker, and I am going to Haunted America this year and Mass Paracon. I'm super excited about both.
Yeah, we get to finally meet at Mass Paracon.
Yeah, we haven't met
I
yet,
know.
like in person.
Yeah, I'm just attending, but I'm coming out to support Sam and of course support you and support all the other great people he has on the docket. All close friends of mine and some close friends of yours as well, and some people that you're going to get to meet, including John that we're actually having on tonight, which is exciting, right?
Super exciting. I'm so happy.
Well, so Victoria has an illustrious short time in doing this, but she has an academic background. She is amazing, and for the people that do not know her, are going to get to have a deep dive into Victoria throughout this program, not just this show, but for how long this show goes. You're also going to get to learn a lot about myself because we're going to ask a lot of different questions through each different topic that we have on the Nine Gates Paranormal, Nine Gates podcast. But a little bit about myself. I'm James Annitto. As I said, I'm a demonologist, but as Victoria said, she is an author. I am an author of two books, The History of Demonology and The Psychological Dimensions of the Paranormal. I've been involved in the field for over 2 decades with involvement in demonology for 15 years, where I've been able to handle cases free of charge and as well travel from east to west coast and also international to speak on the topic of demonology, something that I have come to love, something that was instilled into me from a young age, even though beknownst of it. I was fascinated with the occult, good and evil, which is a theodicy, religion, evil and people. And so since young age, it led me down this road. And being 36 tomorrow, I am still have been doing this, and it's still something that gravitates me to searching and seeking and going down that rabbit hole. And I think that's something, Victoria, that we're going to do on this show. I think a lot of people are going to learn things about demons that they probably have never understood in their life. And when I say maybe never understood, we still don't have a lot to understand of the demonic. We have a lot of theories and ideas and experiences, but still, it's kind of like I say, it's like throwing a dart in a dark room and trying to land it where you think it's going to land. And I think that's what I'm excited about this show. I think you are as well, Victoria.
Oh, absolutely. My whole thing was that I have gaps in my own demonology background because I don't call myself a demonologist. So I was like, hey, what can I do to fill those gaps? And the best thing I think in any field is to go talk to the experts. So we want to talk to everybody.
Yeah, and honestly, and I don't like to claim myself to be an expert, but one of the things that had us become acquainted is that you were writing your second book, and you were looking for people that have maybe a theological viewpoint of it, people that have experienced it, research it. And I saw that you were posting this, and I said, no, I'd be interested. And you reached out, and through that 3 hour interview and discussion and even conversation, just something clicked about us and about possibly, of course, I like to say a light came up above my head, and had this fantastic idea of delving into something like this with you because um, I felt, and you can of course cement this in the statement, is that you have such a deep love for this exploration, especially in modern times, that you aren't willing to take the BS. You're willing to speak your truth, and you're willing to state how it is from your extensive research. You wrote your dissertation paper on this, and then you made it a book. So you've done a deep dive of research, and I think that's what's fascinating about yourself and how it combined us to make the Nine Gates podcast. Your deep research, and you're inquisitive, and I think people are going to see that between both of us throughout this show, asking questions people maybe have never thought to ask before.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Yeah, when we first started talking, I was trying to figure out how has demonic fantasy, which something everybody in the paranormal has come across, especially with the birth of, paranormal television over in the thousands, well, 2000s, whatever we call those. Um, there was this move towards thinking about ghosts and other types of spirits, and it was just straight into demon land. And I know that every single person who works in the paranormal today, their first thought when they hear the word demon is to roll their eyes. And I actually am the same way because it is an overused word. It is something that most people never come into contact with. I happen to believe that it is because of movies like The Exorcist. And there was a whole bunch of other movies that helped this along as well, but that was the one that like really cemented it. And that's what my second book is about. How we got to this point where people, like the public, thinks they know a lot about demonology, and they really don't. They're usually pulling from movies, which are usually not accurate. So I'm trying to get to the accuracy. And yeah, I have a deep love just for the paranormal in general. I also forgot to add, I am psychic. I have all the abilities except for clairvoyance. Seeing things is not my ability. So I get all sorts of messages, especially when I go into haunted places, and I find it to be really fun to be in haunted places. So I'm not exactly an investigator. I like to do psychic walkthroughs. And yeah, I've always loved it. My whole family is psychic, and it runs matrilineally in our family. And yeah, so I'm really excited to delve in deeper into demonology with you because we just noticed right away we had this like platonic chemistry, and that like even when we're getting into the trenches and we're arguing, we end up going, you know what, we don't know. And that may happen here, like that's just what happened in the conversation, but the truth is we don't always know. We don't always understand every single thing about demonology as it's happening. um, we are doing the best we can with what we have.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can get closer to the truth
Yeah,
though.
and to give a little bit of rundown, and you made a perfect example about the explosion of paranormal television and entertainment, or into the pop culture scene where it was a taboo. With demonology and even demonic folklore, it's had its up and downs throughout history as well. I write in history of demonology that during the Enlightenment era, demonology almost disappeared because of how inquisitive people got, more scientific, and a lot of philosophy turned into actual empirical studies, empirical science. So it's fascinating how it's had its ups and downs, and now that media is so apparent and in our face, and of course the intelligence era, um, then we see this need for this want of understanding evil, or thinking it exists as it does through the television or even the movie programs. But in that essence, for people that are watching or will watch Nine Gates podcast, or will even listen when it airs on Spotify, we'll come to find out that this show isn't an interview. It isn't a lecture, so to say. It's all of those things, right? We are not one specific avenue of a podcast. We will have guests on. There will be some interview to it, but there will be some discussion, conversation. But each episode, and we are only airing once a month. So, when we do air, you make sure you pop on, make sure you watch or you listen, because each episode will be different. Yes, we might have a guest on, but each episode will be a specific topic within demonic folklore or folklore, and even demonology, and then some essence, maybe even the paranormal, if it has that umbrella effect, because people do tend to put these demonic beings or these evil entities into other segments of the paranormal. We might discuss those. So each episode once a month will be a topic. And tonight's topic is introduction to demonology. What is demonology? Why do people become fascinated in it? And we brought on John, or we'll bring on John, to talk about demonology. And I think one of the fascinating things about it is everybody has a different viewpoint or perspective of what demonology is. So every time we have a new topic, there might be things that contradict or change the perspective, or might even enlighten us because maybe we didn't think of it that way and they experienced it or they wrote on it and did deep research into it. We have a laundry list of great guests coming up the next 5, 6 months. And people are going to be fascinated. People are going to learn so much if they are engaging with us, want to follow us and listen to us, because they're going to learn from us. We're going to learn. They're going to learn. And the people that we have on are going to learn, or we're going to learn from them as well, because we are bringing a different viewpoint of each guest on. And they definitely, from my research on a lot of these people or even knowing them, definitely have different perspectives.
And we definitely encourage people to ask questions. This is a really difficult topic. Demonology is vast, right? Like, my expertise is in demonic experiences, narratives, media, and phenomena. But I'd like to expand my learning as well. So that's why I'm asking questions. But feel free to ask us questions. Feel free to ask us to ask that person, maybe once even after they've popped off, because we want everybody to have an understanding about this really just difficult, vast thing going on. And because we want to hear from you.
Yeah, so definitely, like she said, ask questions. If we do not get to them, don't think we're ignoring you. We will either answer them at the end of the second segment, which is going to be having John on. We will wrap up with a closing. We will wrap up with answers to your questions if we can answer them. If they're specific to the guest and they're not with us, we'll pass them along. Maybe we'll do a side episode where we have them answer those questions. So don't think that we're going to be leaving you out on this if we do not get back to you or answer your question. So please just note, this is about a specific topic as well. So if that question doesn't flow within the regards of that topic, we might save it and give it to another individual that is based on that topic that we have on, that might be able to answer better than the guest we had on previously or now.
Well, should we get started?
Yeah, so I am just going to give everybody a heads up, and this is not pulling the wool over your eyes. Um, but unfortunately, John had another obligation tonight. He is at an investigation tonight that was double booked, or actually booked and then switched. And John had already committed, but he had committed to this too. So he didn't leave us hanging. John will be on tonight. But thankfully, Victoria and myself were able to sit down with John and pre record his segment. So here you go, guys. Enjoy, stick with it. Even though it's pre recorded, you will learn so much about John. You will learn so much about demonology in the introductory sense.
And ask your questions, because we may get to it while the interview's going on or right after, because we do have a segment right after where we're going to talk about a little bit about what John said.
All right, guys, enjoy.
All right, let's bring on our guest, John Zaffis.
Yes, let's do it. So, For more than 4 decades, John Zaffis has stood at the forefront of paranormal investigation, respected as a demonologist, researcher, and sought after television personality. Known as the godfather of the paranormal, he was mentored in his early years by his legendary aunt and uncle, Ed and Lorraine Warren. From those beginnings, Zaffis built a distinguished career exploring hauntings, possession cases, and unexplained phenomena across the globe. Best known as a star of Sci Fi's Haunted Collector, Zaffis is also the author of 7 acclaimed books on the paranormal and the curator of one of the world's largest collections of allegedly haunted artifacts, showcased in his renowned Museum of the Paranormal. Celebrated for his depth of knowledge, compassion, and a captivating presence, John Zaffis continues to inspire curiosity, challenge skeptics, and draw audience into the mysteries that lie just beyond the veil. Let's bring him on.
Let's do this.
Hey, John.
Hey
Hi,
guys, how
John.
you doing?
We're
Impressive.
good.
You made me sound good.
You made yourself sound good, John. Thank you for the bio. But once again, thank you for being on. This show's a little bit different than a lot of the shows you do. You know, you have an illustrious career, as we just read from that bio. I've had the pleasure to lecture with you, watch your lectures, and get to know you as a friend and kind of pick your mind here or there at special moments of places that we've been to together. Uh, and so, for people that don't know you, you know, as you said, the nephew of Ed and Lorraine Warren. But the big difference about this show is we're not going to get down the old storied stuff of what's your scariest haunting or where scariest places you've been. Those are great questions to ask. But today's a topic. The topic tonight's introduction to demonology. Something that you have a long career in. So, Victoria, do you have anything to say?
No, not specifically, but I will. Don't worry. Well, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting John just yet. I'll meet him at Mass Paracon later this year. I'm so excited for that. Um, But yeah, like I'm still fairly new to demonology, but I'm really excited to be here and I hope that we can get to the nitty-gritty details because my whole thing is like phenomena and I create classification systems based on sight, sound, smell, and feeling because I think that's how we understand the paranormal. And I read several of your books in preparation for this because I wanted to see what sort of work you did. Now, I had, of course, heard of you, but you know, I like to be prepared. So I did kind of want to ask you if, James, you're cool with me just jumping in.
Of course.
When you first got into demonology, what would you say is something that you really need people to know about it? Like, as far as what do people need to understand before they enter demonology, do you think?
I think the key aspect of it when dealing with this, people have to realize once you cross that threshold and you start getting involved with this, you can't walk away from it. It's not that easy to walk away from.
Mhm.
Do they remember you? Absolutely. Reoccurrences, things do occur. And I think once you start to see things occur and things start to happen, it alters you and it changes you because it takes you into a different realm that most people can't see or they're never usually involved with. So, therefore, it's a different world. And James and I have had that conversation several times. It is a very strange way to probably get involved with the paranormal. And what I mean by that is years ago, most people didn't want to get involved with the demonology aspect of a lot of this work. And, more so today, I think I can understand it, you know, because it affects in so many ways that people just don't even realize how it affects your life. And it does. You can, people will just say, no, you read more into it or, it doesn't happen that way. But, when you live it, you're involved with it, and you see it, I always tell people, be cautious, be careful delving into this, because once you do, it's very, very difficult to walk away and be free of being involved with what I call jinn, demons, and all these different things, that are out there that we deal with, because they will recognize you. And even though you could be quiet, you could be in the background, not being involved with anything, you still can end up falling prey where they want to retaliate.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think you make a great point on that, which kind of made me think. When I've talked to many demonologists that are respected, that have some sort of lineage to somebody, a lot of them have a different opinion what demonology is. Like, what's the definition of it loosely outside of the Webster dictionary? The study of evil, but. I've always looked at it. We have different perspectives. We're both Christian, but demonology is so expansive. I just wrote a book called The History of Demonology, not to kind of plug my own book, but I saw how expansive, and kind of always knew how expansive it was. So, if you had to define demonology, how would you define demonology, and based upon your experiences and how you've evolved since the beginning?
Well, that's okay that you're tooting your horn on your book. From what I've heard, it's very well written from Debbie Elward. She was
very good.
And, yes, and a couple of other people I was talking to, they were telling me they had read it, and they, were impressed with some of the stuff you had in there. So you should toot your own horn, buddy. Nothing wrong with that.
Does this mean I can plug my books too?
Of course.
Yeah, there's nothing. Again, with that, there isn't really anything that I find wrong with that when you do that. And a lot of hard work all of us put into getting involved with these books and struggling with trying to pull them together on what we want to put in there. See, the one thing that I've learned, no matter which way you look at it when doing a book, I do a lot of them, we just do our case studies. I do go into demonology and a couple of them a little deeper than I normally do. But because everybody, even like Jem said earlier, a lot of people have different views and different perspectives of what demonology is all about, how they use it, how they practice different things. So again, you have good demonologists and you have, demonologists that are on the dark side. We have both. And again, the conflict will come into play a lot of times when you have the good and the bad that will come together, just from the demonology perspective of it. So where was I going with that?
I asked you to define demonology.
Okay.
In your outlook. I know, like we said, different perspectives, and I'm glad we both agree on that. I know Victoria was. I'm not speaking for her. She could slap me across the screen right now, but I think we all agree on that. That there's multiple different perspectives. But what is your perspective of that? That's what I think people want to hear. I know it's a touchy subject because you might rub some people the wrong way, but it is what you've done for the past 40 plus years, if not longer, of course, that you've done it a certain way or how you were taught. So what is your definition of demonology?
The study of all things that tie in with the different religions, the different types of practices that are out there, different cultures. We have the deities, we have the jinn, we have what we refer to from our perspective, Christianity, the fallen angels. All this goes into a big melting pot is the best way to describe what we could deal with and how we could deal with it. That's why a lot of times when moving forward with the demonology perspective of it, my view has changed over the years. Some of the things I look at have changed over the years. Now, back when I got involved with all this, somebody got scratched, they got pushed, or something happened. It was a devil and it was a demon. Well, I don't look at it that way anymore. Why? Because human spirit can interact in the fact that they can push and shove. If they were mean and rotten in life, they're going to be like that in spirit form. So therefore, we have to take a lot of that stuff into consideration when we deal with the demonology end of it. Again, like James said, 90% or even more of the demonologists, all of us have all talked at one point in time. All of us have connected at one point in time. Now today, which is cool, is that women at least are getting some of the recognition for being involved with it. And again, they get a better understanding that what? Guess what? Women would probably understand things and are probably a little bit more sensitive than us guys are. Okay? I mean, that's human nature. So, Michelle Roos, she's a very good friend of mine. She's a demonologist, and she gets involved with it. We became extremely good friends, and I support her, what she does and how she does it. So, again, with a lot of it, I think I'm more open to looking at things from a perspective of figuring out what we need to do, how do we move forward with it, and the big one, do the people really want help, or they just want to keep it going and for entertainment purposes, which is a very common thing, especially with the demonology aspect of this. Why people want that for entertainment in their houses, damned if I know, because it's not something I look at that people should use as an entertainment factor, but they do.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably it's kind of difficult to sum a lot of things up. James will even tell you this. I'm a pain in the ass to try to get close to. I don't usually let very many people, get into, the inner workings of what we do and how we do it. Sharing our knowledge and sharing a lot of the things is important, and we should do that, but to a point, because you have to build your own structure. You have to build your own defenses, if you will, from perspectives of different things that you will get challenged with and you will get presented with.
That
So
makes
that
sense.
to me is what I would quote unquote refer to what the demonology is all about. I always go back to that day when I walked into my aunt and uncle's house, and Lorraine was standing at the kitchen sink, and I looked over at her and she goes, "What's up, dear?" And I said, "Well, where's my uncle?" She goes, "He's downstairs." "Why? What's up?" I said, "Well, I want to get involved with this demonology stuff." Boom! The glass dropped in the sink, and she started screaming for him to come running up. What? Anyways, went down. We sat down, and he explained a lot of it to me. I was sitting there, and he goes, "Your life will never be the same. Things change. People will turn on you when you least expect it. You will end up doing things that you don't understand why you're doing them." He said you have to guard everything. And the key thing that always stuck with me, and I still stand by that, is he says you have to keep everything separate. You have to keep your personal life and your friends that have nothing to do with the paranormal separate from all this. You don't want to intermingle all that. He said, because then you don't have an escape. And I went, that makes absolutely no sense. But you know what? It does. It makes perfect sense. And I've been able to achieve that and to be able to do that. So again, because a lot of times people say you don't have that much happen to you like a lot of other people do. And it's because, again, it's the separation, I believe, with different parts of compartmentalizing our lives. And again, the best way I ever can come up with it, with the demonology end, or a lot of different things, it's like a doctor or a nurse, a fireman, a cop. They leave work behind. They don't. They try not to bring it home with them and let it affect their personal lives. Once it does, then we know what ends up happening. Total chaos and all kinds of crazy things happen.
Yeah, for sure. Me and James were talking about this. So the way that I met James is because I was writing my newest book, Hell, Horror, and Despair. And it's all about how demonic fantasy and all of these weird ideas about demons and demonology and the people who work in it have been proliferating lately and getting so weird. And you come across this a lot on the internet. I'm sure you know,
Oh
where
yeah.
people are telling you what you know and like telling you, oh, well, you can't do that because of yada, yada, yada. A lot of it comes from film, I've found, and paranormal television. And
Yes, it
yeah,
does.
I was like, why is this happening? And I was asking James because I wanted to know, like, what were the trends he had seen? Because I wasn't as involved for as many years. I've been doing this about 5 years. So we were talking about it and we were like, I had asked him like, oh, do you think you have to be chosen for this? And he said yes. And so did I. I didn't want to do this. This wasn't what I wanted to do. I actually had a jinn possession experience when I was 19. Nearly killed me. And I didn't feel like I could walk away from it when I did my master's in folklore, because I did it on classifying demonic phenomena. And I'm going to plug my book real quick. Here it is, The Black Hours, Modern
Cool.
Demonic Experiences in Folklore. It was expanding that research and trying to figure out what can demons do and what can't they do. And yeah, that's how I got into it. But what do you think, James?
No, it's interesting about how I think John was nodding because in a way it was his anticipation of wanting to learn it and go to his uncle, but at the end of the day, it's like he still did it for that many more years. And actually, you're talking about building foundations, built your own foundation. You didn't live off somebody else's foundation. You made who you are because of just your hard work and your dedication to doing this. So what I would say though, in essence of being chosen, I just think it's like you can do so many things in life. You were kind of born in the cream of the crop. Your nephew, your uncle was Ed, so it's like you were there. You were bred for it right there and then. But what's your opinion on that being chosen? It's not like to say we're superheroes or anything like that, but it does take a special kind of person to do this line of work. And from what I've met of all the characters, so.
If you stop and think about it, all us demonologists have our own quirky sense of humors, our own quirky ways. That is very true. Um, I think what I've when you say that we're chosen, I can remember just going back and watching and seeing the exposure that I had to Buddhists, rabbis, ministers, and some of these different people. And it was all just fluky the way it would always happen with me. I'd be dropping off pierogies at their house because my mother was cooking. All right. So, it was anytime because they were always just 20 minutes away from the 3 different locations we lived. My mom would cook and I'd bring the food up. So, anyways, they go, oh, we're getting ready to go here. We're getting ready to go there. And sure, why not? I'd go with them. I mean, who drops off pierogies and you end up at an exorcism? I don't know too many people. But these things would, I mean, it wasn't like it happened all the time, but I mean, quite a few experiences that way. And I would always hear from a lot of the different spiritual people that, it's in your blood. It's in your blood. And me with my humor, I would say, okay, I'm getting a blood transfusion because I did not plan on even getting involved with the paranormal. That wasn't again. It wasn't something that I thought I would have ended up doing. But my uncle always said, and he used to tell my mom. He said the kid's going to get involved with this stuff. And his real name is Warren, and she would go, Warren, I don't want him involved with any of it. But it ended up happening, and again, he said that years later on. He said, I saw it. He said the way you would look at things, the way you would just watch and listen. I seen you going down that path with getting involved with this. And I go, well, what do you mean? He goes, would study and listen to what they were all saying, trying to figure out is this stuff for real? Does it happen? All of that stuff, and pulling it together. And I think that's how it led me down the road to getting involved with it. So I'm today, I think, even more so than even 6, 7 years ago, I'm more guarded now than I ever was. Why? Because every street corner has a paranormal group. Every street corner has a demonologist. It's what the field has developed into and what it has turned into.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, I think I view a lot of that differently now than I have in the past. I do more work with spiritual friends today than I do with actually going out on cases.
Mm-hmm.
So what I mean by that is, a minister, a priest, or a psychologist, a lot of different people, that I became friends with over the course of years will call me up, and me with my quirky sense of humor, James will tell you, I go, "What the hell you want now?" And we'll get into a conversation, and they'll go, "Well, what do you think?" I'll go, run like hell, and they'll go, "John, that's not helping." But again, with being able to do that, and I know what they're doing with the information. That's a key thing with me. What are they doing with the information? They're using that to help whomever they're involved with at that point. That's important to me. Okay, if it's a client or a parishioner or something, and I know their intent and purpose, I will go the extra length to be able to give them information to be able to help them out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so looking at that from people that get involved with it, going out, doing investigations or doing this or doing that, I'm going to look at that a lot differently. And, okay, you guys are out there chasing Casper the Ghost or whatever you're doing. And if you're going to go into those locations and you're starting to summons and do things of that nature, then I'm looking at that totally differently than I'm going to from the other end.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's probably the way I look at it when it comes from the demonology part of the work.
Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
actually, not to steal Victoria, but he actually made an interesting point. Just to kind of throw out for our listeners, in July, this is a 1 episode per month show. In July, our topic is the history of demonology. But what I found fascinating, what we were saying there, John, is, and it generated this question, is talk about the history of demonology in your more than 4 decades. What is the evolution you have seen of demonology? Do you think it has gone the right way or the wrong way? It's expansive, thousands of years of how long the study has developed, and of course during the medieval ages. But at present time, or in the past 40 years of your dealing, how have you seen it evolve?
The fact that people will at least approach things and try to comprehend things. You don't have, a lot of times I don't get that hystericalness with people, like, oh, it's a demon or it's this. They'll look for answers. They'll try to research something to comprehend it and try to understand it. I think that's more into the forefront. Now, with me, it's always been a double-edged sword with the TV shows, the movies, and everything else. Yeah, has it caused us a lot of mayhem? It most certainly has. But it also, on the other hand, has brought a lot of stuff to the forefront that people just wouldn't talk about. So again, it is what it is. So, and I look at it from that perspective with, trying to take it and work with it, if that makes any sense. And I could tell you flat off right up front, I could be with somebody for, several hours or so and having a conversation and everything and go, okay, and, try to comprehend why that person would even want to do it. What is the motive? What is a person's intent and motive? Because, like I said, we have demonologists that are on the good side. We have demonologists that are on the dark side. So,
what do you mean by that, the dark side?
Okay, best way I could describe it to you is just like, okay, you know how everybody always says witches are all dark?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well they're not. We don't
Right.
have. Okay, but a lot of people, you say that to people and they go, oh, "What are you talking about?" And I'll go, "See, you have to study the work to understand it." We have
Mm-hmm.
practitioners that are demonologists because, quote unquote, if you look it up, it's basically the definition is the study of demons and the study of a lot of occult, things of that nature. Now,
Mm-hmm.
we have cultures and different things where people will, from their perspective and belief system, will summons demons to work with them.
Mm-hmm.
From us being or working from it from a Christian perspective, we're going to look at that a little bit differently than somebody else would look at it.
So like
So,
demonolators,
demonolators?
like people who worship demons and call them up
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. It's a
Uh,
newer thing, I think.
okay, yeah, okay, because now, technically, as soon as you threw that at me, my reaction was, okay, you're talking about a practitioner that, just works with demons per se, and it doesn't necessarily mean they're a demonologist.
Right.
Okay, so, but like I said, with a demonologist, the intent and purpose of doing it and summoning it, you got to be careful because
Mm-hmm.
that's a double-edged sword too. You have demonologists that do some of these things that they're in our world, we walk a gray line. I don't care
Mm-hmm.
what anybody tells you. Anyone that's involved with this field, it's a gray line. You can easily be swayed to the left or the right. The fruit is there. And again, these are the areas you got to take the look at and understand it. Where I think a lot of this is more out in the forefront now, okay, compared to the way it was before. Because
Mm-hmm.
trust me, many, many times, especially with a lot of the old time researchers, that you got to remember back in the day, it was just Ed and Lorraine around. I mean, they would get 50, 60, 70 cases a week. They had hundreds of people going out investigating. I mean, it was unbelievable. And
Mm-hmm.
now it's not like that anymore. It's just not. And I'll sit back and go, I wonder what they would think today. Seriously, I wonder what they would
Mm-hmm.
actually think and how they would, adjust if they would. I don't think they would, but just wondering how they would adjust to that.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's actually fascinating thinking about adjustment, right? I think one of the things that, not to throw your personal life in here, but I think I'm right. You were an engineer, correct? Right?
Yes,
So, so
pharmaceutical.
So when we speak of engineers or what I do during my career, being a project manager in construction, and of course Victoria was a professor at one point as well. We think of that as a qualification, right? It's a qualification that is not always easy to obtain, but instead of getting a license to become an electrician or a license to become a plumber or a license to teach, do you feel like there are qualifications in demonology that should be there? Or do you think it can be just open to interpretation? Or do you think there is specific qualifications needed to be met to be a demonologist in this field? Do you have any qualifications?
Actually, both, if you think about it, James. I think from the perspective of, okay, all right, like me being an engineer, I started from, just working on an assembly line, worked my way up to where, was at a pharmaceutical company, took classes, did this, did that, did it a different way. Because back then I had little kids, working, anyhow. But it's the same thing like with demonology. You build up, that knowledge, you build up that way of looking at things and sharing of different perspectives when it comes in to dealing with some of this, because like I said, it's a continuous thing to watch. That's what's all I always tell people. When you watch a lot of these movies or anything on a lot of these things, you'd be surprised how many things are based off of factual events or factual things that happen. And,
Mhm.
people would go, no way. And I go, well, if you're around long enough in the background, you see some of this stuff that goes on. It does occur and it does happen. So again, you do got to be, again, with some of it, guarded in so many different respects with it. One of the key things I think that's an important element for anybody getting involved, especially with the demonology in it, it's important to be very street smart. Because if you're just book smart, forget about it. It's just not going to cut it. Because you got to be, a kid off the street, seeing it and watching it and pulling it together to getting a good foundation. I was very lucky. Bishop McKenna, Robert McKenna, he was a traditional Roman Catholic, but him and I became good buds. And, I would just sit with him for hours just talking about this stuff. And again, I was very fortunate with him that he was just so open. And I used to say it because I called him Bish. I say, why do you just, I said, you'll sit here and talk to me and I'll see you not do that with other people. And he would chuckle and smile. And he would just say, he said, because you have the right foundation. He said, for what you do and how you move forward. He said, I watch you, John. He goes, I see what you do. I see how you handle yourself. And I go, well, usually I'm a clown. He goes, that's just your mechanism for protection. And I went, oh, shut up. You're not supposed to know that. But anyhow, again, the foundation with all of that is a fundamental thing. And the saddest part is it's not there anymore. We don't have that today because we live in such a different world today. And what I mean by that is, priests and ministers and all these different people, they just won't open up to, letting you into their world. And the biggest part of it is because of the legalities that get involved with so much of this stuff now today. You got to be guarded. They got to be careful because these poor people, they'll turn around and get sued like you can't believe. So they got to be even extra guarded and extra careful from that perspective, believe it or not.
No, it makes sense. And I liked how you said street smart because one of the things about being street smart is connections, right? Yeah, you could read all the books in the world. There's a lot of great tomes on demonology from many different theological perspectives or even outside of that. And is making connections, learning from people, working with people.
Right.
Talk about Bishop McKenna, Ed, and the list can go on and on of all the people that you worked with over the past 4 decades plus. So that is important because anytime you're street smart, you're making connections, you're building your knowledge on the street while also hopefully getting book smart too. Victoria, do you have anything? I have so much involved in that, but
Right.
I want you to interject because you're very smart and look at it through a different perspective, which I find fascinating.
Yeah. So I don't actually call myself a demonologist because I have always viewed that with a lot of weight, that you have to know your stuff. And I'm the demon folklorist because I'm the only one who ever did anything within the field of demonology, or I'm sorry, not demonology, folklore with demons. I was really lucky because Utah State, where I got my master's, they were super excited about it. They were like, nobody has done anything with this. This is so cool. And then, yeah, like it was really cool to be supported like that. And then I sort of entered into the larger paranormal, not from the demonology perspective, oddly enough, just from like the regular paranormal. So I'm a lot more integrated in that way. But this show is how I'm trying to build up my personal knowledge because I'm coming at it from a very specific point of view. It's looking at the ways that demons interact with our world and with us. Literally everything that you can think of that would happen in an encounter with a demon. I take it from discrete little parts of it and then organize it so that we can figure out, okay, what are they capable of and what actually stops them? And there's a lot of pushback I get from the internet. I've kind of stopped with like doing videos or anything like that because there are times that the world just doesn't want to hear that, hey, this isn't a demon. I think it's a jinn. And that's based off being possessed by one. That's just not just pulling it out of my ass, So it's very difficult, I feel like, these days, to just trust somebody's credentials. I like to hear, okay, how many times have you come across this? What have you found? I take experience very seriously because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't go into places that have these things. I'm far too sensitive for that. I
So
have a lot of
you're a
psychic
seer.
abilities.
You're a seer. I was going
Yeah.
to say 2 seconds ago, you're a seer.
Mhm.
So again, that's a very good quality to be able to bring into the study of the demonology.
Mhm.
And just listening from that one sentence you just stated, your foundation is there.
I
And
also come from a Christian household, and I am Christian in that I believe in God and Jesus and, all of that. But I also think that a lot of different perspectives are very interesting and that we should be considering everything from every point of view. But yes, at least I hope that my foundations are secure so that me being here is not just, oh, hello, look at me, I'm this new thing, but that it's coming from somewhere real so that I can show people that.
that wouldn't fit you. That doesn't
Yeah.
fit you. Uh-uh.
Well, yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
right.
no, again, when dealing well, I've dealt with it continuously throughout being involved with the paranormal, is that
Okay.
people will continuously shred you, pull you down. You look
Mhm.
the wrong way. You say this, you say that. You're not, again. I think a lot of us look at quote unquote organized religions differently today than even 10, 15 years ago. People just do. I mean, again, being in that time era of looking at the perspective, each and every organized religion today is deteriorating.
Mhm.
Again, when talking to people and people going back and forth, it's like there's been like this little surge over the past year or so where people are going back to looking at their roots, with some of the religious foundation.
Mhm.
But that's not what makes us, okay? It's what we bring, what we've gained, and what we bring to the forefront.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's how I view it, and I look at a lot of things.
Mm.
I know again, it's probably because I grew up in the '70s. I was out on the streets. I did drugs. I hung with everybody. I don't regret it. I love my partying days. you know,
It
that
made you.
that made me who I am. So, but again, it's the foundation of it that brought everything together with all of that, and
Mhm.
having a good understanding. With me, I don't care what a person believes in. I don't care what a person does. I don't care how a person is. I care about what's here in that person.
Mm.
What does this person think? How
Mhm.
do they handle all of these different circumstances that we get involved with this stuff?
Mm.
Yeah, and what's the intent?
There you
Because
go. There. What's
something I Yeah. Something I
that?
realized in your books when I was reading them is I was struck by how much you focused less on trying to figure out like whose fault it was and more how do I help this person with this problem?
Mm-hmm,
Um, I wanted to help too. That's why I got involved.
mm-hmm. Which is an important. That's a very, very important element for any of us, within this whole arena. It
Mhm.
really is because again, and another thing, always keep in mind and remember this is that a person, because James will even tell you this, I don't walk around, I very seldomly talk about saying I'm a demonologist. I don't go very deep into talking about the demonology. Actually, tonight you got me talking more about it than I usually do. But and it's because, some of that information does need to be shared. It does need to get out there because I hear that all the time from people. What the hell makes you tick? People will sit back and go, they'll try to figure it all out, and I'll go, good luck. No one's been able to figure this one out. I go, about the only one that's ever came close is my wife. But again, with it, I just always watch. I observe. I could usually tell you, again, what's going to end up happening or how it's going to end with the result. And like you just said, I don't give a shit what a person did. I don't care how they did it. Did they learn? Are they moving forward? We all fall. We all do things. That's why again, it is what it is. But you take that and if you can build from it and move forward, then you're accomplishing something. People rip me apart continuously. I'm a thief. I'm this. I'm that. I'm Ed's nephew. I got to be just like him. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like John. That's all I know. But it's just that if you ever let any of that really creep in and get to you, man, that shit can eat you up. That can eat you up.
Really yeah. Can. I'm the master of falling, John, so I know very much so.
Yeah, but you get back up, buddy.
I do, brother. But
back up.
Not to interrupt you, but before I lose this thought with something you were saying, so like you talked about observation, doing certain things in cases, helping the people. So what you said earlier about the study of demonology, giving the true value of the definition, the study of evil or demons and occultism. But I coined something, or maybe I didn't coin it, but I like to use it in such terminology is I call it applied demonology. It's taking the study and then using it in a physical setting. Like I can study biology, but maybe I'll never apply biology. I'll never be a biologist. What is one thing that you have seen throughout your time and doing this in your observation, helping people? What out of that applied nature of it from the study impacts or is a lot different than just reading a book? What have you seen that is true to the things you've read or different thing from the things that you've been applied to and dealing with the cases and helping people?
That it's real. These things occur. These things do happen. It's not all, fiction and stories made up just for entertainment purposes. And I think our best value, any of us, our best value is once you witness in your testimony to seeing some of these things. That is our best tools that we are given. And we work, if you take those tools and you're working with those tools, that's what helps to advance it and to move it forward. So again, there's our basics 101, with the demonology, what to look for. Okay, is this happening? Is that happening? You look in from the outside, you're looking in. But I think the key characteristic, I think today we got a lot better understanding and people talk more about mental illness. People aren't afraid to say, okay, I'm on happy pills. And I'll always laugh and go, yeah, who is it? We all are. But anyhow, again, it's the nature of it that people will talk more about things to help you get to the root of what could be happening to be able to move forward and not blame them because, they did this or they did that or you played with a Ouija board. Oh my God, you're going to burn in hell. See, I don't look at things that way. I just don't, again, will I sit and play one? No, I'm too scared. But that's besides the point. Anyhow, again, I'm not going to chastise somebody because they played with a Ouija board. And
Mhm.
the people cower and they'll go, I played with the Ouija. I'll go, yeah, all right, well, okay,
Yeah.
now we got to move forward. Let's see what's happening. Did you bring something through? Is that what's causing
Mhm.
it? It's just the root of something. I think that's the way I apply most of my things that I do.
Mm.
Mhm.
And you know what used to be fascinating about a lot of it was too when we get to the point where I would go with my aunt and uncle, and when we would be driving back, he would say, what are you thinking, kid? And I would tell him what I was thinking. And Lorraine would always go, oh, like that. She said, you observed it very well on what's going on. And, he would just bust out laughing. So I would, back then I would be like, what the hell's he laughing for? Now I understand it. I didn't understand it then. Now I do. Again,
Mhm.
I was applying, like James was saying, the certain characteristics I was applying to see if it was going to fit in that, standard of a list of certain things, you'll go through to see what if. Because I always say,
All
what if?
markers.
Yeah, always what if. So again,
Mhm.
and move forward from there.
Mm.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm?
Victoria, you got anything on that?
Um, on that, it's sort of like an offshoot of that. I wanted to ask you about your psychic abilities because it was very clear to me you have them.
No,
Um,
no, I am not psychic.
not like in the way that like okay,
Go
so
away.
there's a
Don't go
bunch of different
away.
ways.
Victoria, don't you talk about that. Go away. Okay. I don't really look at, you know, when somebody says that, because a lot of people say that. I'm teasing you. I'm joking around. And I'll go, no, it's just from over the course of the years.
Mm.
When
Mhm.
I sit and I start talking to somebody, boom, 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 I'll rattle off a whole bunch of things. Oh, you're
Yeah.
psychic. Okay.
You're just observant.
Again, basic 101 with a lot of stuff.
Mm.
But,
Mhm.
that's why a running joke with me, too, is, yeah, I'm so gifted. And I'll say, baby, read my palm. Uh, jokingly like that. If you asked me to do
Right.
something like that, I would never be able to do it. I
Yeah.
would just bust out laughing. So I don't know. No, I don't look at it that way. I think we all have that sense to us, with guard and as far as seeing and being aware of our environment.
Mhm.
Um, I can't say I haven't heard that a million and one times from different people
Yeah.
that they'll turn around and say that son of a gun's more psychic than he'll ever let anybody know or say. I just don't
Yeah.
look at it that way.
Yeah, to add to
And
that,
that's fair.
John. Oh, sorry. Yeah, to add to that, John, is I'm talking to many different people, such as yourself. It either feels like many of us are gifted with discernment, right? And that's one
Mhm.
of the reasons that we are
Mhm.
so applicable to doing what we do because we have that kind of gift. But I also feel like it sounds like from what you said is how I have interpreted it. The more that you do it, the more your body comes or your spirit becomes accustomed to the energies or the situations in the house beyond just your mind's eye of observation. You're able
Mhm.
to kind of sense different things. Let's use the word sense instead of psychic abilities or whatever. But you sense certain things that allocate. Okay, well. There could be strife in this house, or I feel iffy, that shaking, that feeling of that sickness of walking through that threshold of the door, like knowing, okay, there's something here that it feels off, like my fight or flight's coming in. Would you agree to that? Is those things you've seen to develop throughout your time of doing this as well?
I would say yes to that, James. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would definitely
That's
say
fair.
yes. Yeah, I mean, I think again, just like with anything, you know, when working with it, that you automatically do adjust to certain things that take certain value for what is occurring and happening, and we apply it.
Mm.
That, again, I will look at it that way, and say that I feel that's what the circumstances are, and again, that's the way that it ends up happening. I think with demonology, though, that you always got to be careful too, because everything could do a 360 on you in a heartbeat. Where
Mhm.
everything could just do such a big turn, and again, confusion. That's another big thing within the realm of that, to keep you confused, so you're not aware sometimes of what could be occurring and happening. So I always tell people you got to be very careful with that too, because everything can turn right around, and that's done on purpose.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I want to just, defend myself a little bit. It's more of a terminology thing, because I can fully accept that you don't really view it as psychic ability, but I've been psychic since I was a very small child. I grew up in a family of psychics. We all have a smattering of different abilities. My clearest ones are clairaudience, so clear hearing, clear knowing, claircognizance, and clear feeling. When I was
Mhm.
reading your books, I got the feeling that you just know sometimes when something's not quite a demon, or when it's and I know that that comes from you guys having gone into these places, and just over time your spirit is going to recognize the different things. But there are times in your books where I'm like, oh no, he's using claircognizance. That's just what it sounds like to me. And it's fair. You don't have to be under the umbrella of being a psychic. I always have been. That's just how I see it. But either way, I think that it helps you in your work, no matter what it is or where it comes from. It is something designed, at least in my house, we consider it like an advanced warning system.
Mhm.
When something's very dangerous, like for instance, here in Cheyenne, in the middle of nowhere, we have this hotel. It's called the Plains Hotel. And I walked by it once and I knew instantly there was something real dark in there. I don't know what it is. I'm not going to get close enough to find out, because if we're dealing with something actually demonic, I'm not going to be able to get close to it. So, and that's a problem for me. It's like, I want to help people. I would love to help with cases, but I don't think I'd be the best person to do that. So I stick to the information side. So
Oh,
I
I
think it's really
disagree
cool
with
that you
you.
guys can do that.
I disagree with you. You got
Why?
it. You got it. Use it.
Yeah, and it might be a protection thing as well.
That is a
Maybe
whole
I'm just
idea.
not there,
Yeah. No.
because I know I was reading your books with Debbie, like she is incredibly gifted. We're going to have her on later in the year because I want to talk to her about the things that she has seen when in the presence of these things. One of your guys' cases, and of course I don't remember the specifics except for what happened, sounded like what happened to me. And I'm still in the process of trying to figure out what exactly happened to me. I know it had to do with a mirror being pointed at my bed for several years, and something found a way to access me and break me down. And yeah, it's a pretty horrific process, even when it's not a demon. So the idea that people would want this to be a demon is insane to me. Like it is to you
I,
guys, that we know how horrible it gets, how horrific that whole process is, and why it looks as horrific as it does is because the person's fighting it. So, it
I yeah. Again, but I do see you down the road. You are going to be getting involved a lot deeper than what you actually want.
are you using your abilities, John?
I no, because I tell you what, again, it's there.
Yeah.
It is there, and it will be happening.
Hmm.
So, but
I'm not
again,
I'm not close to it. I just think that I have to be careful because I'm more open than other people, and it can be harmful. But at other times, I've walked into haunted places like the Stanleys nearby here. I've been there. It was amazing. I loved it. I got like what I call a psychic high from it.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I walked around like, this is nice. I like this. This is cool. Um, just because the spirits weren't draining me, they were weirdly making me feel like you belong here with us,
See,
seeing what
I've
happens.
always said that about this. You know about the Stanley Hotel?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
that place. I've always said that about that place. It's always been a very calming
Mm-hmm.
I've done several events over the years out there. It's always been a very calming feeling in there
Oh, for sure.
because
But
I'm one of those types of
except
people.
for that room, that one room that Stephen King stayed in, there's something in there. I was
Near the
underneath it and I was like, ugh, I don't like it in there.
The one near the elevator.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, there's a room right. I think that's the room. That was a creepy room. But I think again, people went in there and did stuff. That's why there's issues. That's what I think.
That's fair.
Yeah, that I think, but I
Like
don't
portal,
know.
it felt like a portal or something to me. Something used it and I don't like it and I won't go near it.
No.
So that's how I feel about that. But yeah.
So
Super cool.
we're hitting 5 minutes, John. I know you have an hour for tonight.
An hour and a half. Go for it.
Okay. I won't ask
If
my
you want to
last.
keep talking to us, we're
Yeah,
fine with that.
I won't ask my last question. Then I'll save that to the very end. But so let me riddle you, Victoria. You have another discussion or a question you want to bring up because I just got my game thrown off.
So I do want to ask, when you are in the presence of a demon, what stands out to you the most? What is the thing that makes you go, oh, that's a demon?
The energy, I think, more than anything. That the environment is a totally different environment. Whether it's in that scenario when you're in a home helping a family that is under, quote unquote, legitimate demonic attack, or you're in a location where a lot of things have been performed and done with conjuring and things of that. Those energies are very different from what you're going to feel. See, I'm a very firm believer everything is energy. Again, and it just takes on the different characteristics, if you will, and the intelligence and et cetera, et cetera. So it's the nature of it when I know I'm in that environment and I will react immediately. And my, defense systems will go up. And that
Where in your body do you feel it?
Huh?
Where in your body do you feel it?
I don't know if that I feel it in one particular area.
Okay.
Or, anything particular, just the fact that, the red lights will go off, if that makes sense to you. Then
It does. My thesis was called In the Presence of Evil because that what kept coming up in every single demonic narrative ever, that it's not fear, it's not negativity, it is beyond that. It goes way deeper. I explain it to people as you want to run with every cell in your body because it is there to torture and kill you. That's what it wants. And you can feel that malice coming off of these things. So that's why I called it that.
Well, you just answered it pretty good right there.
Oh,
that was,
I wanted to hear it from you only because I don't go into these places, so it's a fully different experience for me.
Yeah, no, I like that. You answered that probably about the best that it could be answered.
Oh.
Again, it's such a realm of uncertainties. That's the best way I could always describe when dealing with. Okay, when I do deal with 3 legitimate cases that are hardcore, I dislike that when it occurs and happens, but it does because everything starts going nuts. Things will just start happening, and weird things will start to kick in. And I know what it is. I know what's going on. I know what's happening. So, years ago, I would get all shook over that. Now it's like, go bother somebody else. I don't got time for you. Again, so because people say that to me, well, don't you, really get scared or anything? I go, well, I'm always scared. I mean, again, but to be honest with you, I'm more afraid of human beings than I am anything else. So, but again, that's the nature of it. But again, I know what the intent and purpose is, so therefore, I don't throw that much energy like I used to when I was younger. Now it's just like, okay, there's a reason for it. This is happening. What are you trying to convey? What is the message here? So that way, if there is something there, I got something to work with. Okay?
Mhm.
That's how I view that and look at that. And they don't like that. They don't want it that way.
Mhm.
But again, you know, the way I had developed it to being able to work with some of this stuff.
Yeah, it's a good point. So developing, right? And, Victoria talking about classifications and all that stuff. Most people hear the famous three when it comes to the demonic haunting. I'm hoping that you can explain each level and give me the expanded version beyond the three, what I'm talking about, the beyond the three, the normal cases of demonic haunting. Um, but in those explanations of each level of that, how do you determine if it in fact isn't that, but it's masquerading as such? Is there a way, like I might know the answer? Like once again, we might have different perspectives on how to kind of receive that answer, even though it's loose and not fluid. What is the classifications of a demonic haunting? How would you explain them, and how would you know the differences?
All right, so we know we have the standards, you know, that we look at as far as the three categories, but I don't even pay attention to that. That again, you know, is something I think that was determined to be able to help people to understand it until you reach that point of what we call pure possession. Those are the most difficult. Rare, but they do occur. So therefore, when I say they're the most difficult, because at that point in time, the person has already surrendered. They already had given and granted permission for it to take control. And working with those environments is difficult because at that point, it can come in and out of the individual. So thus, when a person is being delivered or, you know, an exorcism is being done, might not even phase it, might not even do anything because it left and then it came back in after they were done doing all of the, you know, prayers and so forth and so on. I remember several different times I had said that when Bishop McKenna was working with people, and I go, it took off and it came back. And the first couple of times I said that to him, he looked at me and he goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "I'm telling you right now, it's you know, I wouldn't say in front of the people because then you're basically giving them a crutch, and you don't want to do that." But again, a lot of times, one of the key things we're also taught with this is after something is performed and done, you should wait 3 days to see what's going to happen. You should give it, you know, time to see if something's going to kick back in or something's going to occur. You guys might as well go 2 hours. I'm good. You good. That way you get two shows out of it. Anyhow,
Two shows.
Hey, I'm cool. I got nowhere to be. I'm here for this.
so again, I I don't know. When I walk into a situation, an environment, I don't go in with anything structured because I don't know what I'm going to be dealing with.
Yeah.
I go
That's
in. I go in guarded. I don't walk into anything unguarded. Never.
right.
I don't care if it's a bunch of freaking nuns praying. I still don't walk in unguarded. Again, it's the nature of it. So the evaluations a lot of times will change. The way I look at something will change. The way I'm going to handle something might change. It's how I handle things and the way I do things. I'm not a very structured individual when it comes into certain aspects of our work. I just never was, never will be.
I'm the
So
opposite. I'm so about the structure because so while you were talking, I was pulling up my list of demonic markers that in presentations when people are asking what are the things that define a demonic infestation, it's feeling you're in the presence of evil, extreme temperature changes, usually extreme cold, sighting of a very tall, blacker than black shadow, and it will be radiating malice, horrific, sickening smells of rot or bodily fluids, Injuries, often scratches and or illness, just from being around it. They are dangerous in proximity to humans. Rape. This is usually only present in the worst of the worst, but it does happen. Lack of humanity and mercy, being immobilized in its presence, and hatred of religious iconography, especially Christian. It will usually destroy or hurt these items. So those are the things that I found in like so many different cases that it's like, okay, this defines what this is, you know. So
See, when we go by our markers, you know, which you know, again, we do, especially if you're doing anything with the Roman Catholic Church, everything so quote unquote have to be by the book, things to get anything sanctioned or to be able to move forward. So again, with all that, with the 3 different stages of anything, infestation is probably the point where you want to get involved with the case and you hope you get called in. Because as it moves forward, the strength is gained. There's more that move into the situation until finally it breaks down the person. And that's where I say that's a true possession, pure true possession, the final stage. Now, as it's been broken down into the different categories, I don't necessarily pay all that much attention to it because it can change the game up.
Yeah.
Right.
It can change things up, thus blowing all that right out of the water. So that's why I say a lot of times I'm not very good at being a structured individual.
But you're out there in these situations, and you know, I think structure goes out the window once you're there. You know, I'm here behind the screen. I'm doing things kind of by my own book because that's what the Black Hours was about. Trying to figure out what defines these things so that we can tell them apart. And that's an issue, I think, in the paranormal. And it's not everybody, of course. There are people who are doing good work who do look at things outside of the everything's a demon point of view, which I think that they're very, very rare to have a true case. But they seem to find you in cases. Like you have a lot more cases of demons than I think I've ever seen in anybody's books where I was like, oh no, that's a demon. I can tell.
You know, again, because people do say that all the time. I don't know why this happens. I mean, we work on a lot of human spirit cases.
That's fair.
You know, again, I always get dragged in to the freaking demonic. I don't know why that happens. Or the
Sorry.
you know, or you know, any of these types of things that tie in with a lot of that more hardcore aspects of stuff. I don't know. It's always been, my uncle even used to say that. He goes, you always get involved with this shit. He goes, you know, and I'd be like, I don't know why that happens, but it just does. And again, is it to present a challenge? I don't know. You know, is it you know, I have been referred to, and I don't talk about this very often, from a lot of people on the dark side. They go, you are referred to as the golden ring. And I'll go, well, what the hell is that? You know, the golden
That's fair.
ring. You know, and they'll be, because just the structure of you, what you're about, how you do things, people want to know. And, you know, they want to be able to do all that stuff. And a lot of times I'll just go, I just do it. It's just, I just do it. You know, again, and you know, it's the way a lot of it I can't explain because I don't know. If that makes any sense.
So real.
Yeah,
That makes complete sense to me.
it's real. And I think one thing I want to touch upon, which you kind of loosely said, is what I found fascinating is when people are dealing with it. You know, outside of like dealing with the dark side stuff and you know, kind of playing with fire. What is some of the commonalities you have seen of why a demon might have been attracted to that individual, that household, that business? And then on top of it, like when you spoke about invitation for the dummy that doesn't know, the layperson that doesn't know what you're talking about, that kind of like that invitation of it becoming true possession. What discuss more about that as well. So first, hit off the commonalities of how it maybe introduces into somebody's life, but then also what is that invitation? It's not like just saying "demon enter me." There's more into that. So can you explain that for our listeners?
Yeah. Okay. A demon can't just possess a person. It has to be granted permission to enter you, which what we refer to as free will.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that goes for just about anything that you could possibly deal with. Deities, jinn, fallen angels, whatever it is. 99% of the time, you will find out that it was granted permission to enter that person's life. And it can be done in a cunning way. It could be done in a tricking way. The person might have been tricked. But I will find where a lot of people go, fine, just do whatever you want to do. Worst thing you could ever do, because you just granted it permission, but you did it innocently. Okay. When somebody tells me something like that, I'll look at that a lot differently and go, okay, you were just so beat down that you just said whatever. And I can understand that.
Yeah.
When people deal with that and they go through that type of a scenario, that's hard. And that's difficult.
I've seen to add on to that, and then I want your commonality is that that invitation could be the demoralization of faith, right? If you're getting beat up so much by this exterior force, it's telling you that you're not good enough, turns you away from your family. Sometimes that loss of faith, like that subtraction of God in your life, or any sort of faith from any different perspective, feels like that is also that invitation, because then you don't have that guard anymore. You don't have that protection. Do you believe that to be true?
You answered it right there. There's the invitation.
Yeah.
I don't care if you worship a freaking crystal or a rock. I don't care. If you're doing something on a positive, and trying to bring in positive energy, that's what matters and that's what counts. So therefore, I know a lot of people that, they just don't believe in organized religion, or they don't believe that hell exists or heaven exists, but they have that basics. Okay, what I mean by the basics is they're a good person. They're not interested in hurting anybody. They don't want to hurt anybody or do anything. Their intent is good and on a positive level. That doesn't make them a bad person, because they, don't want to kumbaya all over the place. So that's how I view that with a lot of people. Because I'm the first person to admit to it too. I have a lot of pagan friends and a ton of witch friends, ton of them. So
witches are awesome.
That's why I always say, when people say, oh, they're a witch, I'll go, yeah. I'll go, well, I know a lot of good witches. I'm sorry, but they're not out there, wanting to throw you in their pot and stir it around and cook you up. They're not interested in it. But again, those are the different elements I look at when in determining and trying to justify, if I will, in my mind, certain circumstances or certain things.
So I do want to interject about letting something in. So what ended up happening to me is that I was broken down horrifically through the oppression stage. But what actually happened, and what I think it was almost like it was sent by somebody else to hurt me. So that's another way that I would add to like how things get into your life. Sometimes they're sent by very dark magic. And of course, not most witches are not doing this kind of magic. But I don't think that a demon could get into my life, because it takes permission. It takes a huge doorway, instead of, like, I know that a lot of people are like, oh, it's the little cracks of sin in your life. And I'm like, from what I've seen, that's not true at all. That it has to be a big doorway that you let them through. What happened to me is that I was going a little crazy, and I was knocked out by medicine. They had to give me like 3 times the amount you give to somebody because of my adrenaline. And that's when it got in. It was like a weird, I don't know what to call it, but like a cheat code into me, because I didn't give it permission. I think it found a way around it. And that was kind of the whole situation. There were demons involved with it as well. John, I should tell you about the time that me and my mom were both almost killed by something real big, but later.
And I think
So,
that goes back to the commonality thing. Is that something you find common? What do you find to be the root cause? I'm a big cause and effect person. Like helping people is the number one goal, but finding out why it entered into their life is helpful for it to stop future wise. Is it malice in the family? Like, is there hatred in the family? Is there something that's breaking these people down or breaking that person down that allows it? What is that commonality, John?
That's everybody. That's right across the board. Think about it.
Mm.
With the, I'm trying to think the best way I could describe that. I mean, when the cracks, if you will, or if the door is opened with allowing something to come in, that's everybody. Everything. I mean, all of us have dysfunctional families. All of us have people that have drug problems or alcohol problems.
Yeah.
All of us have different people in the families that are abusers. I mean, it's the nature of it. I mean, it's human nature that these things occur and these things happen. So therefore, I don't look at it so much where, okay, we found out that father abused her, and this is why it's occurring. Okay, we know that. We talk about it. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing we could do about it. It happened. It's in the past. So therefore, with that information, if that person can bring themselves to be able to move forward, that's all I care about.
Mm-hmm.
But again, understanding it from what you're saying, James, is that you're trying to build a structure on why with the cause and effect, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Because us old timers don't do that. We wing everything. So again, it's what you guys are doing is a good thing.
Yeah, because I've seen John, to be honest with you, and not being in the psychology department, right? A couple classes out from my master's in psychology, is that I've kind of looked back on a lot of my cases, my case files, the notes I've written, and remembering of what I can remember of those cases. And I've always seen that there was a level of trauma that was apparent there. I'm not saying that was the situation, but you made a great point. If you can make them recognize and move forward, because a lot of people that have trauma embody it. They put it within their confines of their mind and don't forget about it, but they forget about it and it's still there. And sometimes that's the whole, or when, if that's not the reason this entity or deity or whatever gets in, but when it starts to warp you, that's one of the things it latches onto, because it's like, I can use this against them to break them down, use that trauma against them. And that's something, a common cause I found. But if you can help them overcome that trauma, they will be more empowered than overcome the spiritual side of it as well. Do you agree with that?
Oh yeah. Wholeheartedly. Again, one of the biggest hurdles is trying to get someone to move forward past trauma. It's the hardest thing in the world to let that go, especially if you were victimized by someone in your family. That it's almost impossible to let that go, because we're so conditioned that the elders in families are there to protect and to guide and teach. And a lot of times it just doesn't go that way. It just doesn't. So again, that is a major hurdle, and it's a very hard thing for people to be able to move past it. Or you grow up in an abusive home, not necessarily you, but people are alcoholics, people are fighting all the time, and you got all this chaos going on, drug abuse and everything. That stuff is so difficult to let go of as you move forward in life. Once I think a person can look at it and let it go, again, it takes a lot of work to be able to do that. But once you do that, you've broken down that barrier to be able to move yourself forward. That's how I look at it.
Definitely, that's definitely a good outlook on it for sure. Yeah, I think. Do you see that in your collection of cases, or even what the people that you've dealt with that had their own lineage of experiences and cases? Do you feel like if that trauma is not solved, that there is a possibility for that to come back, or do you think once it's gone and you give them their tools necessary, the feedback we give them, their prescription, so to say, at the end of it? And do the exorcism or do that deliverance, do you feel like it could be gone, or do you think that trauma is still an anchor for this to come back if that's not solved?
Still an anchor. And with that still being in play, 9 out of 10 times you could tell that that case is going to come right back.
Mhm.
You could tell the whole scenario is going to come back, and a lot of times it'll come back worse.
Mhm.
Like I said, it's one of the hardest things for people to let go of our past,
Mhm.
of the things that occurred, the things that it's human nature. We're all programmed that way.
Yeah.
We're brought up, we're taught that it's supposed to be X, Y, and Z, and 99% of us didn't grow up that way.
Yeah.
It didn't happen. We didn't all grow up in the little house. Mommy's cooking and daddy's coming back from work, and everybody sits down to supper. Most of my friends, most of the people I know, and everything, they were dysfunctional, fighting, and carrying. That's what
Yeah.
when people are planted with that vision, that quote unquote, what this perfect life exists. It was very rare and very few in between that things like that ever happen.
Mm.
Again, you know, again, it's just when anybody says that to me, or I talk to somebody, they go, "Oh no, we had a perfect life, perfect growing up. We went to church, and nobody did this, nobody did that." And I sit there and go, "Oh bullshit!
Mm.
No, I'm not buying it. I won't buy it. It's not human nature of people. It's just not."
Yeah. I have another topic of this discussion, but Victoria, do you have anything to interject? Just to get.
Um, Not really. You guys are getting into territory that I'm a little unfamiliar with, but I would agree with what you guys are saying, that I do think trauma, it's almost like it leaves a mark on people that seems to be able to be seen in the spirit world. Um, and weirdly enough, my childhood was actually kind of charmed. My home life was wonderful, but it was the outside world that was cruel to me. So, it's like, even you can have a charmed life inside the house, but it's like the world is not kind to people.
No,
So
it's a mean world. Very
it
mean.
is. Yeah, and
People
even doing this freaks me out. I have an anxiety disorder, but I do it anyway because I want to hear what people have to say and what their experiences are. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
but yeah, no, not really. I don't have anything else.
So, John, so we're not going to get into much of investigating or applying demonology in the sense of an investigation, because we do actually have Dave Giuliano coming up in the future talking about investigating the demonic. A perfect person to do that. Dave's a good
Uh-huh.
guy.
Yeah.
But what I want to know from you, when you're applying demonology, what is the best team for you to put together for you to help somebody applying that demonology from that study? What is the perfect team that you would marry together? I know your team, so to say, but I want people that don't know who you work with or how you bring people together to work a specific case. Is there a perfect team when you help people?
No. Nope.
Mm.
There's no such thing.
Yeah.
Again, across the board from over the years, I've worked with a lot of different people, a lot of different researchers and stuff. I have my core team with 4 or 5 people within the group. Debbie and Larry, I work a lot with. So again, with that core of that, depending on what I'm getting involved with, because I don't, again, with case, a lot of times with some of the cases, I don't necessarily feel that doing a full 2 or 3 or 4 day investigation is necessary. If you're there, there's stuff going on, there's stuff happening. How many more EVPs do we need? How many more dust globs or whatever the frick they are floating around do we need to capture? The person's got shit going on. Let's get in there. do what needs to be done to see if it's going to rectify it and move on. I mean, that's not a good way to be for a researcher. I know that. Because the key thing is you want to get your evidence. You need that. You need to be able to build it and, get the case built and everything too, for a lot of people, depending on what they're doing. But again, there are those scenarios where it could be 1, 2, 3 with me. Then it could be a scenario where, okay, the team could go in and do an investigation because I don't believe that there's anything paranormal going on. So therefore, letting the team go in to investigate to see if they can get any evidence could be an important thing. So it depends.
Yeah.
I don't really have a set way that I do stuff.
It's good, yeah, and interesting in that in your time of doing this, I was going to ask you about your most haunted place. I said I wasn't going to, but what I'm going to ask you, in essence, is in my life there was a point in time I didn't believe demons existed. I'm a see it to believe it kind of person. Was there ever a moment in your life that you necessarily didn't anchor that evil spirits or demons existed? And was there a pinnacle moment? You don't have to get into the full case throughout, but was there a pinnacle moment that really kind of changed your perspective of the spiritual world or actually believing demons existed?
That's 1988. The haunting in Connecticut was a very big, pivotaling turn for me with experiencing 3/4 of the stuff I did in there. Then there was a big case right after that, never went public, that I worked on for 4 years, and 13, 14 exorcisms were done before the woman was freed. Those 2 cases back in 1988 and 89 were actually what convinced me 100% that there is so many different things out there that we can't touch. We don't, it's there. And it's those things that we come up against that people don't believe exist that do exist. So that was a big pivotaling time in my career when I finally took that step back and went, man, this stuff does occur. Look what these poor people, because I witnessed it and experienced it. So therefore, that changed my view. See, that's another thing I always stand by too. If somebody said to me, I never seen anything, I never experienced anything, I've been doing some of this stuff for 10 years, and I'll go, that's okay, I can understand it. They don't believe in it, they never experienced anything, never had anything happening. But once you do, that changes your reality. You have to incorporate that because now it's a part of your function. It's part of your material, of your fabric, of you. Yeah. You've seen it. You experienced it. It happened to you. So therefore, that alters you and changes you.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I think alter is a good word because, like you said, some people, and we've kind of quantified that through the 3 of us, is that you're kind of meant to do this work. I've seen people deal with lesser cases that weren't necessarily quote unquote demonic, but it turned them. You actually know a couple that dealt with the case with me, and they went to you because it was horrific to them. They were experienced and seasoned investigators, but that case that wasn't even demonic toiled with their life. And for us, when we deal with it, it impacts us and it takes a toll on us. Do you feel that, where was I getting with this, in the sense of how it is impacted you throughout? Would you say that instead of drawing you away from it, it's actually made your faith stronger and made you want to help more people? Would you say that's the case? It seems to be true because you're still here with us today doing it.
Yes and no. And the biggest thing today that still keeps me so entwined in all of it, because there's so much we don't understand. And there's so much that occurs and happens that we're still searching and looking for. I'd be thrilled to death if we could say, hey, we went in, we did a scientific evaluation, we were able to record it, we were able to get repeatability. We finally achieved something major because we don't have that. Again, that's what keeps me going with it, is the search and the looking. I mean, I know there's no doubt in my mind as far as I'm concerned. Is there a God? There's no doubt in my mind about that.
Mhm.
Okay. With a lot of the different perspectives of things, I look at probably more of an open-minded type way when it comes to organized religions across the board. All of them, not just mine or ours or whatever. But anyhow, it's just the way I evaluate things and look at things. If I sit down and talk to a priest, I'm telling you, sometimes they start throwing holy water at me because they go, "There's something wrong with you." And I go, "No, there isn't." I go, "You just don't want to hear it. You don't want to talk about it. You won't talk about it publicly, and that drives me nuts." But I understand why they don't. I do, because they don't want to get bombarded with everybody driving them crazy that, they got shit going on in their house and blah, blah, blah. I understand all that.
Mhm.
Because it's such a different world behind closed doors when it comes to clergy. It blows your mind. I mean, I used to belong to the association for The Exorcist, for the Roman Catholic Church. I pulled out of it because I'm more, get involved with more different things and look at different things where, if you're Roman Catholic and you want to stay with that and just, go down that one corridor, that's okay. But to me, that's not what it's about. I got to know everything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, same.
I have to poke around. I have to know everything. I want to work with different people. I don't think it's going against God because I want to learn and understand different things. It's got nothing to do with that. And no one's going to convince me of anything different.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah, Victoria, that sounds like a segue for you because some of those things resonated with some of what you look into and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm much the same way. I think most things go back to, which is funny, that it's a huge thing in the occult and with witchcraft, intention. So if you're out here and you're trying to help, I don't really care how you help. I mean, that's between you and your God. I know mine and what I do, but I don't want to judge people. That's not what I'm here to do. I want to help. So that's the way I look at it too. And yeah, I don't think I don't fit very well into like narrow things. I think the world's more interesting and complicated than that.
Oh yeah, I love that. No, it's got to be that way.
Yeah.
That you will never learn and will never grow if we stay in that tunnel. That's
Mhm.
one thing, I've always bucked this. I've always been told that too. I bucked the system,
Mhm.
and I'll go, I always will.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to change from that. I know my roots. I know what I believe, but it doesn't mean somebody else does. So again, I like I said, some of my best friends are witches, and I would fully trust them with anything because their intent and purpose has never been on a negative. I've never,
Mhm.
again, and I have to give people credit for that. See, that's another thing too. A lot of people don't realize that because of the movies, unfortunately, with Ed and Lorraine, they think they were these strict Roman Catholic people. I don't know
Mhm.
where that ever came from because they worked with freaking everybody under the sun. That's how I
Mhm.
met a lot of different people and different cultures and different practices was through them.
Mm.
So again, but again for TV land they had anyways. But
The movies. Oh my God. You and I should talk movies. I lose my mind. That's what this next book's about because it's like, are you serious right now? None of that's correct. You know.
but see, I'm so used to it because it's always been that way.
Yeah.
I mean, because people say, John, how do you let that roll off you? So, all the criticism and the knocking and everything, because it's
Mhm.
always been there. I've
Yeah.
seen it from, the beginning with my aunt and uncle. They would get
Mhm.
shredded no matter what they did.
Mhm.
But they kept moving forward. They kept moving forward and just kept pushing and kept pushing it. And, again, my uncle used to say it all the time. Good press, bad press, you're getting press.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, get used to it. And, articles or something would come out. He would be sitting there reading them. And he goes, now we own it. Because they would misquote or say something totally different. And I watched it happen. I watched
Mhm.
it where they would be interviewed on something and then it would be in print or anything. And I'll go, I was there. They didn't even say that.
Mm-hmm.
again, it's the nature of it, and like I said, I'm just so used to it that a lot of stuff just rolls off of me now.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, John. I think one of the things that I've come to understand, and this is a saying I love. I forgot who quoted it or said it, but the closer you get to God, the harder it gets. But also, in essence, the more positive you are doing, the more people that want to rip you down. But also, there's an element to it where you said earlier that once you get in this work, you're marked. They know who you are. They will toil with your life. But that's also an element too, right? You're not only dealing with the physical ramifications of people wanting to step on people that's doing good, evil people or tenacious people that want to write a bad article, but you also have the spiritual realm as well that are trying to manipulate and turn things against you because if there's enough bad stuff on you, some people will run away, and that's to me the end goal of the demonic is if they can take a warrior off the chessboard, then there's a step closer to instilling more evil into people. Would you kind of agree to that?
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. I think it's more of a challenge today than it ever was in the past. Again, we look at everything as our world is. How many of us ever thought we'd be living through, 2020, a pandemic? Everything's shut down. I mean, I can still remember standing out on my deck crying, because of what had happened. I mean, war. Look at what's happening today. Wars all over the place. I mean, this is going on. Whoever thought we'd be living through this all again? And watching, to me, it's pure evil that has come to the forefront, and it's extremely prominent today. It's just out in the forefront like it never was before. So again, but you say that to people, you're nuts, John. You're nuts. You're crazy. But it's there. We're all living it. We're all watching it. Again, now with this new wave of whatever that freaking thing is that's going on with the people on the boat.
The hantavirus.
Oh,
Yeah.
the hantavirus, yeah.
I mean, oh my God, everything is cloned right to COVID. Started on a ship. The people got it. No, it wasn't going to spread. Now it's spreading. They're saying now other people got it. It's like, oh my God, it's 2020 all over again. So
I was in grad school at the time. It was awful.
Oh, it was terrible. It was totally terrible because our lives have never gone back to the same. Never. Our social lives have been totally altered ever since then. Everything has just totally changed since that pandemic. I've never, I haven't seen the world go back to what it was at that point in time.
So that's actually a good point. Is that do you believe that certain historical points, even beyond our existence of living, breathing, do you think that certain historical points in the human timeline has been moments of being evil brought forth and kind of dealing with people? Do you look at that? That's a realm of demonology that's find fascinating. People think historical points or historical people maybe were influenced by the demonic or influenced by evil in that realm. Do you think that's the case?
Oh yeah. Do I think people can be influenced by evil? Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's very enticing. And, just what people could be offered. The old saying, money is the root of all evil. Man, oh man, is that true? It's definitely, definitely true. So again, with a lot of that stuff, I look at it and I take that in stride of what's happening and what's going on. I mean, I never seen so much evil as prominent as it is today. Seriously, I mean, it's unbelievable. People don't even think twice about, doing something to somebody or saying something to somebody. I mean, there's no filters. Filters are gone. It's weird. It's just weird. I mean,
that's on the internet. The things people will say, like, I was doing an interview with somebody and they were like, "Oh, I think she's working for the enemy," and I'm like, because I talked about gin, like, wow, that's quite a threat.
I've been hearing that for freaking years,
Yeah,
years and years. So it doesn't faze me. But actually, it's always been a running joke with my two daughters and my son. There's a 10 years difference between the girls and my son. And with my daughters, I couldn't talk about the work. I couldn't say anything in front of their friends because they were afraid their friends wouldn't let them come over. My son
Right.
comes along. I'm the coolest dad in the freaking neighborhood. With the golf and everything like that. So it was weird how that all changed and how more of it's open now. So
Mm.
it's just a lot of that's so much different now.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, it's become less of a taboo too, right? I think
Mhm.
before The Exorcist came out in the mid '70s or early '70s, it was around, but that kind of opened Pandora's box
mhm.
for more people talking about it, seeking that help, even
Oh
though
yeah, yeah.
but yeah, to think about it, you were alive in the '70s. I was not. Victoria definitely wasn't either. Like I could imagine seeing that, especially being involved in the work and being related to Ed, how it must have been, it must have boomed and become more of that spotlight and more people coming out. And we've seen this now to the evolution of 2026. It's so open. So, sometimes it's I could imagine for you, but how many emails I get a day reaching out? I'm dealing with the demon because it's become so more open about it, and more people are willing to talk about it or even point towards that direction, even though it might not be.
I know. Yeah, Victoria, you had said something that just triggered a memory way back when the computers just started coming out, the internet and everything.
Mhm.
My buddy Mike had built a website for Ed and Lorraine Warren. There was only two other websites out there at that point for any paranormal stuff. So him and I were working on it. We were putting it together and everything. My uncle wanted nothing to do with it. Nothing. So he just got, I don't want nothing to do with that shit. I don't want nothing to do with it. That's all he would say. But Lorraine was, working with us and we were building it, putting it together. Finally, Mike got it all together. Ed and Lorraine came down to the house and it was back. Remember with the noises? And it booted up and it was the big monitor. And he brought the page up and both of them were standing there looking at it. He opened a couple of pages. The both of them looked at it. All of a sudden, Ed didn't say one word. He walked out of the room. And Lorraine turned and looked at Mike and she said, "Show me more, dear." So he was showing her more, showing her all the different things. And she looked right at me, went right up along my shoulder like this and brought her finger down. "This is the tool of the devil, don't you know?" She was freaking right, wasn't she? She was right. Look at the shit we deal with today with the internet.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. Everybody says what they want. They do whatever they want because they're hiding behind a keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, but I'll never forget that. And then she walked out. They were in the kitchen sitting down, getting ready to eat. And Mike turned and looked at me. He goes, "They don't like it." And I busted out laughing. I go, "Yes, they do." He goes, "John, did you just hear what she said?" I go, "Yeah." I said, "That's just her, though." And then
Yeah.
years later, certain people will say certain things, and that triggers right back in my mind, going right down the front of me. "This is a tool of the devil, my dear."
Mm.
And I
I
was
love that.
like, "Whoa!" I'll never forget that.
That's cool.
Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I grew up when the internet was still fairly new. So it's like I have like a dual relationship with it. I definitely think parts of it for sure of the devil, but it's also how people find us, people who are trying to bring the truth as we understand it about demonology to the world. It's how I got into the paranormal in the first place. I got onto paranormal Twitter back when that was a thing, and now I try to explain to people, mostly at events, because the public is a lot different than the paranormal community and lecturing to them. The public just doesn't want to hear it. They're
No,
like, nope, it's either an angel or it's a demon, and there's nothing else. And I'm like, okay, I can't have this conversation with you. I'm a folklorist. And I get those emails too, where people are like, oh yeah, I'm dealing with a demon, and I'll be like, okay, tell me what's going on. They'll rattle off an entire story, and I'll be like, well, that doesn't sound like a demon to me. And then they'll get mad. They'll be like, yes, it is. And I'm like, you just asked me for my
we all
opinion, and now you're rejecting it. Okay.
I know. I know. I laugh about too is a lot of times the newbies that get involved will call and talk to me. Or I think there's this one group that started a few years back now, and I was on the phone. We were sitting watching TV. And there were 3 little kids involved with it where they started provoking and everything. And I threw a fit. I said, you don't go into a house to do that when there's little kids. And the girl that was talking to me as she was on the phone and everything, she goes, you need to retire. And I'm like, I go, I need to retire. And my wife goes, oh, Christ, here we go. And I'm on the phone, mother effing her up and down. I said, you're calling me, asking me for help. I'm trying to help you, and you're telling me to retire. And my wife's
been watching too many TV shows.
I know, she was trying to grab the phone out of my hand to hang it up, and I was still screaming as she was pulling it away from me. But again, that it's the nature of people doing that. So I try not to even pay attention to it. A good friend of mine just moved down south, and she's opening everything up. I said, you better hold on to your, hold on to it, because the people down in the Bible Belt don't go for this stuff on the paranormal. And,
they have a lot of very interesting folk beliefs surrounding demons. Like there's an entire chapter in the new book about how Labubus are demonic, how a certain type of alarm clock is demonic, how things like tampons are demonic. I just had to like put my head down after I heard that one. I was like, I can't with this today.
It's a whole different world down south
It
when it
is.
comes to all this stuff. And she went, oh my gosh, she says, I can't believe how people react to me just saying I'm in the paranormal. I'm Satan's disciple. I go, I told you, I warned you. I said, it's the way they view it down there. I said, I go through the same thing when I go down there. So I said, yeah, fine, you want to call me Satan's disciple, knock your socks off. I don't care.
Right. It's like, whatever. I know who I serve,
What I say all the time, I know who I am, so I'm not worried about it.
That's real.
Crazy.
So we're reaching the end to where we have to go into the final segment, John. We wrap up the show at the end of this and talk a little bit about what you had to say and any questions that we missed, maybe we could answer. But I do have one last question for you in the realm of, for our listeners, for the people that approach you. If Jack or Jill came to you and said, I want to be a demonologist, what would be your advice to them? What would you tell them about if they were interested in this line of work?
First thing I always do is go, why? Why do you want to do it? And then from there, I'll take it depending on what their response to me is. And I'll go, you're not cut out to do this. Or I'll go, okay, move forward with it. It could go either way on how I would respond to those people. That's the best way I can answer that to you. Because when somebody tells me, oh, I want to know if they're real, blah, 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 I want to get on TV and I got to do this and do that. You just said all the wrong reasons. So therefore, it's like, no. I mean, you're doing it for everything that you're doing it for all the wrong reasons.
That definitely respectable. John, once again, thank you for being on with us tonight.
Hey, it was great, guys. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
All right, John. Thank you. Victoria, let's get to the last segment of this show.
Hi, everyone. I am currently trying to set this up because my computer's having issues, and I was told that it was having issues the whole time. Also, there's a storm going on, and that's fun. Oh, and I can't hear anything. That's awesome, too. Just keep talking, James. I can't hear anything. I will fix it as we're doing this.
And I'm glad that, I don't think I was talking the whole time either. I had my mic off.
We're good.
Oh, gosh. Oh, God. I'm just talking.
All of these tech problems. It's the demons, guys.
Yes, right? I think it was just a lack of my mic being on. But at the end of the day, though, I hope everybody enjoyed John's segment. Man, that was stellar. He discussed a lot of things that you don't typically hear from John in his interviews or his lectures. I think we saw that John was very interested in this whole discussion and these questions, and I hope you guys were as well. Man, what a discussion slash interview.
Yeah, I thought it went super well. I love talking to John. As you guys saw, it went way over what we originally had intended, just because we all wanted to keep talking. But now, this is the time. If you have a question or if you submitted one, James will have to read them because I can't from this configuration. I'm on my phone. But we can answer them the best we can. And but yeah, now's the time.
Yeah, so we had a couple questions pop up during this segment, and once again, we apologize for not answering the questions during it. We kind of let it go to the flow, and then for people that don't realize and didn't hear it from the first segment, the first half hour, first 25 minutes before John came on, it was pre-recorded. John had an obligation tonight, so we wish we could keep him on to ask these questions, answer these questions, but we will do our best to answer them and give you our opinions on them. And if there's enough questions, maybe we'll have John answer them for a partial segment or a little snip in the future. But the first question was from MJ. And I know you're going to have a field day on this, but I actually have some experience on this. MJ asked, what do you think of the exorcism priest, which was Father Stephen Rossetti, who got fired for linking demons and aliens?
You want to go first? Just because you worked on a case that was similar to this, I don't think we're actually not in agreement. I think we're just like on the other side of things. So yeah, feel free to
So,
start.
in political nature, the Roman Catholic Church is an organization. It is organized religion. I am Roman Catholic. There are times and places where priests that are public, especially exorcists like Rossetti, Martins, Raheel, Ripperger, and a couple more, but those are the famous four. Rossetti does plenty of interviews and plenty of discussions. And you got to remember, as a priest, they are still a person and they still have their own convictions and beliefs in what they've observed, what they've dealt with. We haven't lived through Father Rossetti's life. We don't understand why he maybe states that. But one thing I will have to say about that is that sometimes the things you say in the church can get you censored, where they shut you down, they do something because it really detracts away from what their point of view of it is, or at least especially within their confines of their district or whichever. As somebody that has dealt with a case that I was called in on to consult with Sabrina Pasquarelli, when I used to work with and consult with Sanctuary Paranormal, Dave Giuliano's group. As we stated, Dave will be a guest later on in the future, talk about investigating the demonic. But I was actually called in to review some of the things that they were catching because they were stumped. And eventually we kind of unraveled a couple of things where maybe we were looking at it in a different perspective. Maybe it wasn't, of course, in the sense of demons and spirits, how we thought. It was maybe something out of this world, which anyway, celestial and extraterrestrial really has very similar meanings, and it's how you interpret it on a metaphysical realm and on, of course, maybe a physical realm. But we actually came across a couple things that I won't get too much into detail on, but we called MUFON on to that case because there are a lot of things that directed to it, that it was out of this world in the sense of extraterrestrial. Once MUFON gets involved and you're not a MUFON investigator, unfortunately, you're not involved in the case anymore. So I do not know what came of it, to be honest with you. But in that sense, I can understand why even a very smart person like Rossetti would link demons and aliens, because many times there are a lot of replication of the same thing, losing of time, appearing in a location that you did not know how you got there, behavioral changes, these seeing lights, certain things that happen with abduction cases or alien experiences are very similar. And but unless you really unravel that onion and did like what we did, and then how to get the other specialists involved, MUFON, sometimes you're led to believe, and especially if you're super faithful and have a certain theological perspective. Once again, he's a person, so maybe he was inclined to think of it as a straight biblical nature where God created the universe, God created humans in his image, and there's nothing else explained about any other creationary points. So I could see why he said that, and I can also see why his bishop censored him. Unfortunately, what's your opinion on it, Victoria?
So I'm not really going to comment on him being fired because I'm not Catholic. I don't know how any of that works or why they decide to do what they do. But I do have very strong opinions about people saying, oh, no, demons are just, or sorry, aliens are just demons, because I've looked at the phenomena of both things. And naturally, I haven't looked at all of the UFO extraterrestrial sort of side, but even at this stage where I've just begun with that research, because I like to go through like 15, 20 books of people who have experienced this and then cataloged it, organized it. It's very different than a demon. Now, I didn't know the specifics of that case that James had worked on. So I'm realizing, oh, yeah, well, I can see though why there are similarities. There's similarities across all paranormal entities. I can see why somebody would take a, UFO extraterrestrial experience. Sorry, it was UFO when I was a kid. I'm not used to UAP. But I can see why they would think that they are very similar. There are similarities, but the way that demons approach, victimize, and try to tear your life apart is a lot different than the way extraterrestrials do it. Or even if they're not extraterrestrial, they might be interdimensional beings, right? It's very different. It's different in the way that they communicate, in the way that they seem to be trying to find something. Like they're studying us. Demons are not studying anything. They don't care. They don't like us. Actually, I would go as far to be like, oh, they hate us. In everything they do, it's always malicious. I find UFO phenomena to be quite neutral a lot of the time, and more in the realm of high strangeness instead of the markers that I look for demonic phenomena. Demonic phenomena cannot be mistaken for other things. It is very clear cut. You will know what you are dealing with, even if it decides to hide itself at first. Eventually, it will get to a point where it cannot hide. So I think they are very different, but that doesn't mean, though, that a demon couldn't maybe pull some UFO tricks out to try to mess with somebody. But I haven't come across it. Entities have markers that they follow, things that they always do because of their abilities within the spirit and our world. They have to
Mhm.
enter our world somehow to be able to do what they're doing and manifest on our plane. So that's what I think about that.
Yeah, and to reinforce that, and John reinforced your statement as well. We've come accustomed in doing these. We know, within our fiber of our being when it is demonic, right? And
Mhm.
we could be wrong. Sometimes our physical body and our mental capacity can get the best of us. We are human. None of us are perfect, but you are
Mhm.
right. And I think where people get confused and don't look at the differences more than the minute similarities, are faithful people maybe that don't want to believe in something that exists beyond earth, and a lot of these things are happening, or people outside in their family that are similar to them in their belief, where they're like, okay, well, this is demonic, right? Because they're misinformed. They watch
Mhm.
television shows, and that is their subject of reality, right? That's their cultural tradition, that aliens don't exist, and it's
Mhm.
angels. It's like you said in a statement, is either angels or demons, right? And
Right.
I think that's a true point of view to look at it. At the end of the day, I think Victoria stated it. We stated a lot in our conversations. Both of us could be wrong. But you know what? Like she said, there are markers and there are things that we know within demonic folklore and demonology that point towards something being demonic and being solidified to be such and interpreted as such. So,
Mhm.
unfortunately, he was fired. But I think things will work out for Rossetti. He has brought a lot of eyes to the Catholic Church, and promotions of this stuff. It's like at the same end of the day, a lot of people, and I followed Father Gabriel Morth's work a very long time before he even became famous with these movies. And he was also, for the people that weren't Catholic, also a lot of people disagreed with him, but he was also doing it for 40 years and seeing a lot of things that Victoria nor I or even John Zaffis have seen. But great question, and hopefully we answered to the best of our ability. Mike Sulo, who's from Rhode Island, asked another great question, and I think John kind of hit upon it and we dabbled on it. But Mike asked, "What are some of the criteria that can help us discern between a true demonologist, and a demonology enthusiast, scholar slash hobbyist?" And I'm gonna have you answer that first, Victoria, because as somebody that doesn't claim to be a demonologist, even though is a demonologist, what is your viewpoints on it? Like, what is your criteria if you want to reach out to a true demonologist instead of a hobbyist?
Um, I suppose like I go back and I look at their like interviews or if they have a show. If they're bringing up the D word a lot, demon is a buzzword. It's clickbait. So if they're bringing it up a lot in various investigations, automatically I'm like, I don't know about this. I don't know about this person. And then I look deeper into their credentials because demons are infinitesimal. They're actually not common in our world. And I know that can be a little earth shattering to some people. True demonic cases are so rare that it's to the point where it's less than 1% of all cases. Most often it is something else. But I've even had people be rude to me when they asked for my expertise and be like, of course it's a demon. I just told you all this stuff. How could you not think so? And it's like, because I have an entire categorized list of the things that happen during demonic infestation, oppression, and possessions, and none of this fits that. Also, demons are not the only entity that can possess people. And I want to make that very clear. There are other things. And I think in our world, especially with like the oversaturation of media and the way demons are kind of like said to be everywhere, behind every corner, you should be afraid. The fear is actually quite overblown, but I'm going to be also clear about the fact that when you are in the presence of a demon, you are going to be afraid no matter what. So if somebody's sitting there being like, oh, well, I wasn't afraid, it's not a demon then, because your body, your lizard brain is sensing what this is. So that it is malicious, that it wants to hurt you. So, um, I got really lost in my own explanation. I hope that I don't know. Sometimes I stop listening because I'm like, and then this, and then this. So sorry, guys. Hopefully that worked.
I think it was a great response, and I think one of the things that John stated in a similar based question slash kind of discussion I got involved with is about what does it take to be a demonologist? What's the credentials? And I think one of the great things he stated, which is very true, is that they're street smart. And so, yes, a street smart person can BS their way through. They could be a hobbyist and they can come off as this expert or this specialist or this true demonologist. But really, at the end of the day, as my analogy was, if you're street smart, you make contacts, right? So for me, a true demonologist will have reputable partners, people that they work with in the churches that they can state as a reference point, or worked with this person. You can reach out to this person and say, "Oh, have you ever worked with James?" And you know, is somebody with basically. And I know Lorraine Warren said it's the touch of the devil when it came to the internet. But the good thing about the internet is you can do your research on the internet. You can know who, what, when, and why this person is the person they say they are, and do your own research. I always tell people, as somebody that works construction and HVAC and plumbing, you are going to I always offer this. You should get more than one quote, three quotes, or you should do your research on the people you're hiring. Look at their reviews, look at their experiences. How long have they been in business for? These things that can be applied to demonology or seeking out a reputable and true demonologist. What is their background? Who do they work with? What is their academic background? What have they done to advance this field? And, do and one of the things that I agree with Victoria is how many times are they dropping the D word, demon? Is it regularly? If it's quite often, then there's something to take back and say, well, what's the possibilities? Like John has been doing this over 4 decades. He has his books littered with it, but as he says, it approaches him, he gets involved. They know him. He's been in some very dark cases, more than I have been. People can be in this and deal with it quite literally often. And when I say often, maybe once a year, once every few years, and that can add up the more time and experience you have in this. But it's not like he's stating or I'm stating. And of course, Victoria from her research is stating it doesn't happen every day and it doesn't happen every moment. It might be happening every day to a person, but it's not every day. Maybe a demonologist is getting involved and interceding into this person's trauma, this issue, this spiritual conflict, this affliction. And that's the thing, is right. It's not every day somebody like myself is doing it every day. It's been a while for me. It's been a couple of years, and knock on wood, thank God, it hasn't come across my lap. But it's not something you want. But like I said, get back to the true question is all those things that both Victoria and I said about really understanding who a true demonologist is, and wanting to listen to them and even maybe ask them for help if you're dealing with an affliction yourself.
Mhm. Even with John's books, they were still a very low percentage, and they stood out to me in terms of phenomena. Immediately, I was like, "Oh, I think that's a demon." But even with the like slightly higher percentage than most people, it still was fairly low.
Hmm.
John has dealt with all sorts of cases. Banshees, jinn, like things that he doesn't actually give a name to because he wasn't sure what it was. And that's fair. You're not always going to know. It's not always going to be so clear cut that you will have a definitive answer. You might have an idea, but really at the end of the day, it's about the people trying
Very
to help
true.
them.
We have a question from Deborah Perkins, a good friend of mine. Has been around for a long time. She used to host, and maybe still does host, a talk show, and talks a lot of inquisitive people. One of them being me. Maybe Victoria, you can get on with Perkins one day. But she says, can demonic entities get into people that drink too much alcohol or do drugs, as it changes people to negative energy and abusive behavior?
It's a difficult one, that one. Because I think there's a possibility of it leaving you slightly more open,
Hmm.
but demonic entities need something way greater. They need a lot of permission to
Hmm.
manifest, and opening yourself up in that way might help it along, but it would be more in the terms of encroachment, which is when they're trying to find a foothold in your world. Maybe they can find it a little bit like a foothold, literally, instead of a big wide doorway. So
Hmm.
I would say no, that it doesn't help anything, but that no, that's generally not how these cases start.
Yeah.
They have to find the big doorway, the big invitation and permission to manifest. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
I'm at yes and no on that too, more so leaning towards no. But like you said, it does activate these people sometimes to get into circles that aren't good for them, which can deteriorate their physical, mental, and spiritual. And those are the things that could maybe lead to things coming into your life if you're at the wrong place, or maybe dealing with the wrong people, and getting involved in the wrong crowd, where maybe little things start happening, and those little things start to turn into big things. Like in Victoria's sense, she was possessed by a jinn, said demons were involved as well, and other things were going on. So these little things can come in, and then sometimes that reaction can create an a kind of explosion within your life, where that little thing then turns into a bigger thing if you don't get off that bad negative horse that you're riding down dark tunnel with no light at the end of it. That's the only way. If it leads to other things, I always try to say that it's not always the feeble-minded or the people that are mentally ill that get affected. It could be the very strongest person, like Victoria stated, charming life, cruel outside world. But there are people that have a charming life inside and outside of their home and have a great faith and still are affected by the
Mhm.
demonic. So it really, at the end of the day, is one of the questions that I think that John attempted to answer. We all try to attempt to answer, but sometimes what we think gets thrown out and changes by the merit of an experience with a case that we dealt with, or a research that we read and articulate into a book or talk about. Experiences change, and it to me, that's why it's a yes and no, because it's a really hard question, because if it leads to something, in a way, it's possible that it could be the start of it, the root, but that doesn't always mean it's why the demon's in your life. It
Right.
can
It's not the like direct
Yeah,
road.
yeah,
Um,
it can use that to you can use those weaknesses in you to kind of conflict you and lead you down a darker path, but it's not that reason.
right. No, for sure. I definitely agree. This actually, I remember, like, I don't know why I didn't think of it initially, but this came up in Hell, Horror, and Despair when I was sort of debunking demonic fantasy. I have actually read books where Catholic exorcists said that the pathway into your life is casual sex, drugs, and alcohol. And I'm like, no. Like, okay, because if that were true, wouldn't everybody have demons? It's a lot more accepted now that all of those things are happening. Wouldn't we all have them? And once again, they're infinitesimal, so the numbers are just not lining up. But again, that doesn't mean that it's not going to possibly lead there down the line. But is it exactly like the big doorway? I don't think so, but it's more like it's leading you down the road, possibly to the doorway. So
Mm. Yeah, and then Debbie actually kind of reinforced why she asked that question. And she says, the reason I'm asking is because the girl that I know, she was doing a lot of drugs. She literally killed her boyfriend, and now she's claiming that she had multiple personality issues where she felt demons were telling her to do it. And to me, that unfortunately, as the psychology aspect of it comes out to me, sounds like mental health. And
sounds like schizophrenia.
yeah, schizophrenia, dissociative identity disorder, and the demons can use that against you, and people
They
that are
they can
mentally
manipulate.
ill can use that as a masquerade, as a tool to. If you go to a specialist and they say, "Well, you have this," that's explaining it, but that could still be there behind it, masquerading as a shadow to that, and that's why you're never getting help on the spiritual side. But unfortunately, with the mental health pandemic we have, I generally have to lean towards that. Unfortunately, she has some sort of disorder that isn't uh, that isn't sought out yet within her through any specialist, like a psychiatrist or psychologist. But it's sad to hear that she killed her boyfriend. I pray for his family, and one of the things that I found through my own research, and I'm pretty sure Victoria as well, is a lot of the times when people do evil deeds, and we kind of talked about it with John, but a lot of times when people do evil deeds, they use a demon as a deflection because it's easier to say something external to this made me do it. And we've clearly have seen examples of this in pop culture as well,
Mhm.
where it's an easier to avenue or pathway or corridor to go down because it takes yourself, your faults or your issues out of it, and you blame it on something else that supposedly controlled you.
I have 2 points to this. Also, schizophrenia in America is a lot different than other countries. It is a lot of like yelling and external forces acting on the person in a horrifying way, when in other cultures, schizophrenia manifests as very kind voices saying like encouragement and like acting as almost like ancestors. So I think that's also part of it. Religion can be quite frightening. So we end up often having people go into religious psychosis. Um, and it is a very real thing.
Hmm.
Also, something I want to bring up from my research is people who were possessed at the time of a murder. Only 3 people I've ever found were actually seemingly possessed at the time. If demons were able to kill people like that, they would. I I firmly believe that they cannot all do that. That it's very specific demons that are able to. Because honestly, they would do it more. And
Yeah.
that's my thought. But that's what I found with the research.
Hmm.
But yeah, like the mental health and religion and all of these other factors, they really do get mixed up in culture, but that's not to like demean that person. They probably believe that's exactly what happened. So,
Yeah, and there's even beside the true cases of it where it might have actually happened, is there's accounts of it throughout history. I wrote in my first book, Lodan,
sorry, my
the nuns
cat
of
is wanting to be on camera, I guess.
it's all right. The nuns of Lodan had a priest killed because they thought the priest was creating them to be mass possessed. And, we come to find out where mass hysteria can come into play. And hysteria in itself, in a singular sense, can promote things being thought of as something else because of maybe cultural traditions or cultural beliefs. And we have to discern, as of course a demon folklorist and a demonologist, where these things lead to where they possibly were or weren't a demon. So it was a great question.
Mhm,
And Christy asks, and this is, I think we've debated about this before, and I have a mixed opinion on it. But Christy says Annalise McKell.
the Annalise Michelle case. And I might be saying it wrong. I'm sorry, guys. Um,
McKell.
is it Mikkel? Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. Annalise Mikkel. All right. I think that was a gin case. I went into that extensively on my first podcast, Demon Folklorist. It's still up. You can go look for it if you're interested in the details. But I'll give you just a short overview. It did not come out to talk to priests when bade to under the command of God. Demons find the name of God, they find religious objects, they find all of those things to be painful. They torture them. So they cannot ignore a call like that. And this thing that was possessing her did, and often was able to turn away. And it made me think it was a jinn or jinn like, in that they have free will.
Yeah.
They can turn away. And jinn, if people don't know, are from Middle Eastern folklore. They were made after angels, but way before humans. Angels of light, human beings of clay, and jinn of smokeless fire. So they're the fire people. They're also said to be people of the air. They are a whole different race of entity. They don't have bodies, and they live in like almost like a pocket dimension to ours. They can see us, we can't see them, and have all sorts of abilities. They also can possess people, and it can be quite horrifying. And the other thing that struck me about her case is that she was her because okay, I came from it like I'm not sure if this is real. Because I had listened to her recordings and I was like, this doesn't sound like a demon to me. It doesn't have this, what I call the spine separating effect. It makes your spine almost like liquefy and like to hear a demon. And I can tell the difference. I don't know if everyone else can. I also happen to be psychic. But of course, I was doing this at like 3 a.m. because, you know, demon folklorist, I'm a weirdo. I'm doing research when people might be scared to do that, but it didn't have that. I thought it might be religious psychosis, but as I looked into her case, it was very powerful, very frightening phenomena, but it just wasn't as intense as a demon would be, because demons can get to levels that are like miracles, like negative ones, when it comes to the things that they can do. So it just didn't hit those bells for me. It didn't hit the markers. And I don't think that that was a demon case,
Yeah.
but that's me.
Yeah, I've done extensive research, and I actually, oddly enough, and the reason where I'm kind of mixed on it, I've heard the authentic recordings. There's a lot of fakes out there, but um, I've done a lot. I wrote a report on it where I actually wrote about it in my first book, part of my chapter, possession cases, and why I can see where people lean towards maybe psychosis or psychotic symptoms is because Annalise exhibited severe emotional distress and behavioral changes, but she was also diagnosed with epilepsy, which can
Mhm.
sometimes be associated with psychotic symptoms. Her treatments included both psychiatric care and religious rituals, which did complicate her mental state. But witnesses also reported her experiencing hallucinations and delusions during her final months. And the combination of her medical and psychological conditions suggests she may have experienced psychosis. There's a lot of data to it, and it's a very old case. One of the reasons I would say I do believe something was in fact there outside of that. Once again, like John says, I walk in the gray area. So I also walk the fine line between believer and skeptic. Where I would believe it existed and happened and truly was something spiritual, regardless if it was a jinn, demon, something lesser, is the fact that if you've ever seen the movie Hostage to the Devil, which was based on Malachi Martin's life, and John Zaffis was actually on it, Jimmy Petitino, Ralph Sarchi, some of those legends right there I just named. And Marty, the director, was actually trying to make a part two, which involved around this childhood friend of Annalise McCall, who was, of course, much older, and she happened to um, get the bed that Annalise McCall used to sleep on. She actually had it, the bed, and so she started experiencing things, and it slowly built up and built up and built up, and the merits of, and I actually saw data, I saw a video of phenomena happening while she was sleeping, and it was pretty eye opening. And the only reason that part two did not occur is because, unfortunately, Marty, the director, wanted her to come to the United States to get an exorcism, because in Germany, unfortunately, due to Annalise McCall, exorcisms were banned in Germany for a very long time. Then, unfortunately, another death happened in the 2010s. Another death happened from an exorcism in Germany, and unfortunately, they kind of rolled back on it again. And a lot of Europe does deal with it, but they're very secretive and private about it, more than us Americans sometimes, because we're very outward and outspoken. But even the Roman Catholic Church, like you'll never see a Rossetti or a Martins or a Rippiger or a Rehill doing an exorcism on live television or on a movie. There might be like a reenactment, but you'll never see them doing it. But Marty wanted it done on camera, and nobody would accept that. So that's why it fell, because maybe that person did get an exorcism privately, but my involvement of it was trying to get her help here in the United States, which miserably failed, because I understand, personally understand, would never expect an true exorcism to be filmed for a documentary. And so, due to that scenario and due to that woman that had a childhood connection to Annalise and had her bed that she died in, basically, and rotted out and became malnutrition and died, that kind of led me to believe that something truly did exist within the confines of that case. I've always teeter-tottered on it. I want to be a believer because of the things that I know about that case. And then I also teeter back that there were a lot of mental and physical health issues that she did have before she started having these experiences as well, too. So it's a tough one, but I do find it to be a fascinating case, and of course I do. It's a cult classic, not the greatest movie in the world, but I do love The Exorcism of Emily Rose, which was inspired by that actual case. But great question.
Mhm.
I'm gonna have you answer this one because I think you're gonna answer it perfectly, and you dealt with it. So this will be our last question for the night because we are getting late, and we're about to hit almost the 3 hour mark. So Debbie asked, for those that don't understand what the difference is between jinn and demons. Take it away, Victoria.
Um, Jinn and demons are okay. So I guess I'll start with, if human beings are over here and demons are over here, very different beings, right? Jinn are somewhere in the middle. They have abilities very similar to demons. They're often mistaken for them, but their phenomena is never going to be as intense, and it's not always as malevolent. But they also behave like humans as well. So, the way that like people often come into contact with them, especially in the Middle East, like they're not as much of a thing here in the Western world, is they're going to be like hanging out in derelict areas in, sorry, my cat, he just jumped on my face. He's doing well, I think, because of the storm. Anyway, so where was I? Yeah, just the way that people come across them is in these like desolate, dank, dark areas. They like to hang out there. Somebody might accidentally, like if you stamp the ground, you might knock over a gin house. Maybe it's underground. Maybe you accidentally threw out water from your house or what have you, and it hit a gin child or it hit another gin, and they're pissed. They behave a lot like fairies in fairy lore. Are they fairies? Hard to say at this juncture of my research, but they could also be something that's kind of related, but in a different part of the world. There is a lot of overlap. They behave like humans, but they can possess people. So the way that I tell the difference is because of different markers that will come up in demonic experiences, just like I had listed them in the interview we just did with John. But Jinn ones are similar and there's a lot of overlap, but they're not going to be as intense. They're usually not quite as malevolent, but they can be quite like angry and negative and really hurt the person. They also go on for like years and years and years. They Jinn lore tells us that they end up like getting into your body through a spiritual, mental, or physical imbalance, and that they can make themselves super small and live in your body. Do I know if that's true? Not at all. That's just what the lore tells us. But I do know that they go on for a lot longer because they're not as horrific of a experience to be around them as demons are. Demons will cause illness. They will break down the body. that you will lose your vitality. You will lose something being in proximity to a demon because they are dangerous. So jinn are something that are a lot less dangerous, a lot less powerful. But is there like a definitive, like one thing that separates it? Not exactly. I haven't written a jinn book yet, actually, because Western jinn experiences are hard to nail down. I would probably have to do field interviews and ascertain whether people are dealing with jinn or not. But I do think they're a little more common than people think they are, just because of the way that phenomena will be going on during these cases, but it's just not intense enough to be a demon. And yet I'm like seeing overlap and I'm like, this just doesn't sound like a demon. And yet something's very clearly happening here. So yeah, that's generally how I tell, but the truth is I could be wrong while
Yeah.
doing classification on a case. So,
I,
there's no definitive thing.
I think you hit it on the head. One thing about my gen research and a situation that I dealt with an item and all that stuff from the Middle East is that this is, of course, debated theologically, if through Islamic folklore, Islamic theology. But one of the things is about the jinn is, like you said, they're not innately bad or innately good. They can they are
Some
what
are
we
bad, some are good,
yeah.
most are neutral. Sorry, I
Yeah,
forgot to say that.
yes. But the thing is with the jinn, and I think this is where some people might disagree with me when it comes to demons, but jinn possess free will, while demons, in the sense of fallen angels, possess the fixed will, fixed free will, which is a much difference because jinn can switch sides, can be evil, could be good, could be in the middle, that gray area. But when the fallen angel fell, they became corrupted. So even though they have a free will, they have a fixed free will in the sense that they can never become good again. And that is theological basis when it comes to angels and fallen angels, which what we call demons in Christian theology. But that is also a big difference is that disparity in the sense of changing, right? A fallen angel by theology basis, any major theologian will say this. St. Thomas Aquinas wrote about it, and he was one of the most brilliant minds when it came to theology. They have a fixed free will. They can never become uncorrupted again. And that's something that is debated to this day, but most people will lean towards that is the truth because there has been no story of a fallen angel rising back to God's will. And
Also want to add to that,
yeah,
even outside, like I tend to operate my research outside of religion just because it's more of an interpretation, the way that I'm coming from it. Not that it's wrong or bad or anything like that. It's just not useful to what I'm doing. I, even looking at demons from kind of outside of religion, I can tell you they are corrosion of whatever they once were. They are wrong. They do not belong here. Everything about them and the way that they interact with our bodies, our minds, our spirits is wrong. And you will know that wrongness the second you come across it.
mhm. Yeah, and actually, I was gonna grab the book, but what the funny thing about Jinn too is, a lot of people lean towards them on Islamic folklore, Islamic theology. They actually do have a true lineage in Chinese mythology as well. They have been spoken about in some form or fashion throughout many different cultures, which is also fascinating. So
I
there is,
didn't know that.
yeah,
I'm not up on my
yeah.
Asian mythology.
Oh, let me get it. I'm gonna
I
screw
didn't
up.
like
It's
get
it's a
the
it's a
my
great.
supernatural folklore studies was more like American, Middle Eastern, Mexican. I didn't get into a lot of Asian,
Yeah.
East Asian cultures, so
Yeah,
that's
this is
interesting.
a great book, people. It's Chinese myths and legends. They actually, talk about it. A lot of Confucianism and Taoism have the influences, but yeah, it's a great book. But yeah, it's interesting how expansive things can be and the multiple different perspectives of it, but kind of the same basis, right? But yeah, that was a great question. But I thought Victoria dealing with it, having that experiences, and digging deep into the what and whens and the ifs and the possibilities of what she dealt with. And when you deal with it, you have a little bit more of a better knowledge of these differences and feelings. Like, I've never been possessed, knock on wood. I've dealt with an attachment, sucked. But once again, I knew it wasn't
0 out of
demonic.
10. Don't recommend.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't demonic. I knew it wasn't a jinn. Once it came to the formulation that I was actually dealing with something, it was just something that was pissed off that I took home with me. And unfortunately, when you're doing these things, you're going to come across some circumstances, but even as a demonologist or an investigator, we can't jump to the worst case scenario. We have to dissect what's going on with us, do our own personal research, understand why these things maybe have happened. And Victoria, is a prime example of that. And she states her story very well, and you can read about it, you can hear about it, and it's a very interesting thing. But great question about the gin. I'm so glad somebody actually asked that question, because of us talking about gins, they maybe think, what has that to do with demonology? Well, if once again, like, I formulate demonology as the study of evil spirits, or the study of the lore and cultural traditions of wicked spirits, the umbrella of evil, jinns can be evil. And so we,
Mhm,
as a demonologist or a demonic folklorist, a demon folklorist, has to understand that cultural tradition and
mhm,
understand why it can be evil, when it is evil, what can happen, what occurs. And so it does fall under the umbrella of demonology more than people think it does, because, as John Zaffis said, it's a multiple perspective based study, and there's multiple different people of different faiths and backgrounds doing this work. And I try to tell people, there are one set demonologists that are just Christian oriented. Me, I'm Christian by faith, but I'm an eclectic demonologist. I've studied many different cultures. I've traveled internationally. I've done a lot of research on other people's beliefs and organized religions, or even their folklores, because it's fascinating, but also very similar but different as well.
mhm.
So yeah, Victoria, do you have anything to add to that before we wrap it up? We're about to hit 11:30 here. I don't. I think it's what, 8:30 there,
Yeah,
9:30 there.
it's almost 9:30 here.
Yeah.
So adding to that, I guess, because I was answering that more from like my research, having been possessed by a jinn, it was still horrible. And there was a moment where I had been knocked out by, medical drugs, and I went to sleep, but it took 3 times the amount of drugs they normally give people because my adrenaline was so high. That was when it got in. It was like a loophole. Um, I woke up and something else was looking out through my eyes, and I was in, like, get out is the best way to describe it. I was in the sunken place. I was a passenger in my own body. I could not control what I was saying or what I was doing. I was just there to watch. And I could feel it. It was very cold. It was very cruel, but it was not what I would describe as evil per se. It was just not good.
Mm,
And demons, something that gets reported across, like, cross culturally, and in every single demonic narrative, is that you feel you are standing in the presence of evil, and evil that cannot be mistaken as negative or just fear. It is every cell in your body wants to run. You cannot forget it, because it almost leaves like a mark on you when you get close to something that evil
mm,
and that hates humans that much, and you can feel it radiating off of them. And I already said that in the interview, so sorry to repeat myself, but it's it cannot be mistaken for other things.
yeah.
So from that perspective, my case just didn't line up with demonic phenomena. And I was like, if this was a demon, why wasn't all this other stuff happening? And it's like, probably because that's not what it was.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and to end on that note, I want to bring up next month's episode, which is, I believe, July 7th. We went from June 6th to July 7th. Maybe we'll do August 8th next, and then September 9th. But no, and funny enough, our plan is to do the first Tuesday of every month coming up.
Mhm.
So we will be switching from Saturday to Tuesday from
Sorry, guys. I
8:30.
work Saturdays, so I can't do every first Saturday of the month. I apologize.
But we will be switching to Tuesday from 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Mountain Time, to every Tuesday once a month. Um, and next episode, July 7th, will be not because I wrote the book, The History of Demonology, but it will be the topic of the history of demonology. And the
Mhm.
reason for that is we introduced it to you tonight, what demonology is. We got both of our perspectives of it. We got John's perspective of it because he's been doing this for 4 decades. But we're going to go to the history of demonology because we want to see, after talking about evolving and changing and all these different eras of where demons have come in and out of play within, of course, critical thinking and seeking out research, the history is expansive. And for that guest, we have brought on somebody that has wrote a book, is an author themselves. I think they actually wrote multiple books,
Mhm.
if I am correct. His name is Kyle Cobb. He might not be well known by the circuit or the paranormal circuit, but he is very knowledgeable, very smart. I've had opportunities to talk to him in the past loosely. I know Victoria interviewed him, I believe, on her show when you ran one. Is that
Oh,
correct?
no,
No.
not I didn't that was just my show was me talking
Oh, okay.
essentially. No, so I interviewed him actually for Hell, Horror, and
Okay.
Despair. I
There
wanted
you
to
go.
talk to a couple different demonologists. And he came up because I was already friends with him on Facebook, and I was like, "Hey, would you be interested in talking to me about this?" And he was like, "Yeah, of course." And I found myself just sort of like, oh my, like listening like intently as he told me about the history of demonology. And the history of demonology is not my area. I know about it because, I think you need that foundation, but I think we're all going to learn something amazing from him that we didn't know because he is quite fascinating when he gets into his subject, and then he's talking for 10 minutes and I don't even realize that any time has gone by. I'm like, "Yes, please keep going." And he's like, "No, stop me at any time." And I'm like, "No, no, no, I want to hear this." So I think you guys are going to really enjoy listening to him
Hmm.
and his perspectives and what he's found about the history of demonology. And him and James, I think, will have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, and it's going to be a fascinating show. I will tell you, we have it all the way almost. We have all but January up to booked with a guest. We've kind of talked about Kyle Cobb just now. We kind of did let out during the talk with John that we're going to have Debbie Elword on. Which will be fascinating. Get it from her perspective as an L person with abilities or psychic abilities. So we have some, and Dave Giuliano, I kind of ripped the bag on that one, but we have some other guests that we haven't announced yet, that I think you guys are going to find fascinating. In each week of the first month of that Tuesday, we are going to hit a new topic, as we discussed at the beginning of the show, a new topic focused around demonology and demonic folklore. Certain things might overlap, certain things might be different from another person's perspective. So you have to understand, not everything you hear might be cemented in what we think. They might have a different opinion, but this is what learning's about: hearing what people have to say, going back to our own mind and analyzing it, doing more research, going down that rabbit hole. And I hope you guys join us every Tuesday, the first of the month, and enjoy the Nine Gates podcast. Have a good night, everybody.
Hi, guys.